Green light. Full power.
Lewis and Clark Athletics on Pios Stream. The Pioneers are ready to compete against the best the Northwest Conference has to offer.
You wanted the best! You want the best!
Interact with today's broadcast on Twitter and Snapchat by finding us at LC Pioneers.
On the Twitter,
Facebook.
Welcome to the show.
From the Lewis and Clark campus on the Hill in Portland, Oregon, it's time for Pios Stream. Right now.
It's time for Lewis and Clark football on Pios Stream as we get set. Northwest Conference games continuing. In Forest Grove, Oregon, we're at Hansen Stadium, site of today's Northwest Conference matchup, the Pacific Boxers taking on the Lewis and Clark Pioneers. Thanks for being here wherever you may be. We are broadcasting on lcpioneers.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on our YouTube page as well. Ryan Goff, Elena Goff with you on this Saturday. It's going to be a nice day for football, a big contrast to last week. Lewis and Clark at home for a homecoming. It was a great game. Pioneers beat Puget Sound 46-29, but it was raining the entire game. Not the case today. Sunshine and beauty, warmth and excitement as Lewis and Clark takes the field off to our right, running from the near side to the far side, their sideline across the field from us at Hansen Stadium, and getting set for this game. The 3-3 Lewis and Clark Pioneers, the 3-3 Pacific Boxers. Hansen Stadium's a nice facility. It's got an artificial turf surface. We're expecting temperatures to stay in the mid to high 50s today. So all in all, it should be a pretty good day for football. Lewis and Clark trying to win 2 straight games after a win 46-29 last weekend. They're going to try to move their streak to 3 games in a row after beating Willamette back 2 weeks ago 43-41 in the last road contest. For Pacific, they're off back-to-back losses to 2 of the best teams in the Northwest Conference. Lost last week to George Fox 21-14 after losing 52-23 at Linfield. This is the first home game for Pacific and only their 3rd of the season as it goes back to October 9th. Let's take a listen to the public address announcer.
But first, before that, we'd like to pause for a few moments. The Northwest Conference family lost a valued alum and friend last Thursday with the death of Chuck Charnquist. A longtime figure with the Portland Trailblazers, Chuck also carved out a quarter century with Lewis and Clark as Sports Information Director. He also served as SID for Linfield College and for Portland State University. Along the way, Chuck also made many friends across the conference. He bled orange and black, make no mistake, but he realized the important role all independent colleges and universities play in academic and athletic success for young women and men. Pacific University and the other member schools in the Northwest Conference join Lewis and Clark in remembering and ask for a brief moment of silence for Chuck Charnquist. Thank you, thank you.
We're not patched directly into the public address announcement, but if you didn't hear it, that was a moment of silence for Lewis and Clark, former Sports Information Director, Public Information Director, and alumnus Chuck Charnquist. Chuck passed away earlier this week, spent a long time in the Northwest Conference, most of it over 2 decades at Lewis and Clark, filling the role in charge of athletic communications. And so that was the moment of silence from the public address announcer at Pacific, and a very kind gesture from the Boxers to those at Lewis and Clark and the Charnquist family. Come back. Coin toss, kickoff next on Pios Stream.
I think everyone should take intro to chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed Education in a Complex World. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was international affairs, just intro to international affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
National anthem played ahead of this contest. Northwest Conference football, Lewis and Clark and Pacific getting set for a chance to go to above 500 on the year. Lewis and Clark 3-3, 2-2 in Northwest Conference games, an identical record to that of the Pacific Boxers. These two teams met last back in 2019. Lewis and Clark did not play a 2020 football season. Pacific played a little bit, I believe, in the spring, but did not have an official season either. The Northwest Conference was shut down during the course of the 2020 football season. So Lewis and Clark last met the Pacific Boxers on this field back October 19th, 2019, and it was a very tough first half for Lewis and Clark. We'll see what happens today, because the Pioneers fell behind by 35 points to Pacific. It's just one of those games where it didn't feel like anything would stop what was going on with your opponent. Lewis and Clark tried their best in the second half and put up 28 against the Boxers, but again, it's always difficult to come back from a 35-point deficit. Lewis and Clark had allowed 14 first downs before getting their very first. So that's a big deal, right? 14 first downs before Lewis and Clark had their first, and over 600 yards of offense for Pacific in that game. Pioneers have a lot of the pieces left from that team, but there's still some missing components. We'll see how the Pioneers adapt, because you have Aiden Verva Hamilton, who had a big game 2 years ago, back and had an excellent game last week in the win over Puget Sound. But Michael Abraham was on that team 2 years ago, not playing this year. However, Elijah McGee has filled in admirably in a couple of ways. The Pioneers replacing Michael Abraham, who had back-to-back great all-conference years at running back for Lewis and Clark. But it looked like Deontay Navarrete would be the replacement for Abraham this year. The sophomore had ran for 5.7 yards per carry and 6 touchdowns in the first 3 or 4 games of the year. But Navarrete is no longer available. So last week, Pioneers turned to wide receiver Elijah McGee, the junior out of Bremerton, Washington, to fill that void. And Elijah had a game. Great contest against Puget Sound last week. Comes into today averaging 6.8 yards per carry and has a touchdown to his credit. Pioneers are going to receive the football first. Pacific is going to kick left to right. Black uniforms, white pants, red numbers, and white helmets. Lewis and Clark in white tops, black pants, matte black finish on the helmet. And from our vantage point, as Lewis and Clark goes right to left, the number on the helmet is showing the opposite side. The right side has the Lewis and Clark logo. Kick left to right. Kicker for Pacific is Zach Saros. Pioneers back to return. A short kickoff. Running up on it is Desmond Holton at the 15, hurdles and gets to the 30-yard line. Far side, Pacific ran out of the tackle with the football, and Pacific has the football to begin the game. It was a fumble by Holton. Pacific has the football. Lewis and Clark starts on defense, and Pacific has the ball at the Lewis and Clark 30-yard line. Kenyon Harris is the quarterback for the Boxers, senior out of Ogden, Utah. 70% completion percentage, and has thrown for 12 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions. Averages about 200 yards per game throwing the football. Under center to start with Josh Harris, the senior running back from Sonora, California, behind him. Bunch of receivers left side, that's the hash mark. Play action. Throwing. Harris looking to the end zone between 2 defenders, and it's muscled in by Ty Hargis for a Pacific touchdown. Right down the left seam. Pioneers have an injured player down. McConnell LeBoy is laying right in front of the goal line for Lewis and Clark. It's a 6-0 lead for Pacific on the touchdown reception of 30 yards. Just 14 seconds into the first quarter. Right now it looks like the third receiving touchdown for Hargis. We'll try to keep everyone straight in this sense. Number 8 is Ty Hargis, who cut the touchdown pass. Number 14 is Ty Vargas, who's a sophomore receiver with 4 receptions this year. LeBoy is up to his feet and jogs off the field. Head athletic trainer Jeremy Lowe there to assist. The holder is Colin Weirds. PAT by Caden Ulmer. Pacific has a lead right off the bat. 7-0 lead, 30-yard touchdown reception. And that's the 13th passing touchdown by Harris to Hargis. Well, that's disastrous. Right off the bat, the Pioneers turn over the football. That pass was thrown up in the air and caught in double coverage against the Pioneers defensive backs. Congratulations, Lewis and Clark cross country. Both teams finish in 3rd place at the Northwest Conference Championships. Pioneers will get set for the West Regional coming up. Pioneers freshman Riley Beasy is an All-Northwest Conference selection for the Pios, as is George Karamitsos and Frankie Reed, All-Northwest Conference first-team selections. Second kickoff goes over the head of Holton into the end zone. The Pioneers have their first touch of the football with 14:46 to go first quarter, trailing 7-0. The quarterback for Lewis and Clark is Cruz Montana out of Eureka, California, has had a very good 2021 season. Cruz Montana, a junior at 6'2", 195, averages 195 yards per game. Very similar numbers to that of his counterpart on the Pacific side, but completes about 53%, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And Elijah McGee is the running back for the second consecutive week, wearing number 12 behind the quarterback with the orange shoes. Play action, 1st and 10 for the 25. Throw across the middle, and it's received in between double coverage just past the 40-yard line. Over the middle, Isaac Cordova has the catch. And it's a first down, Lewis and Clark up to the 42-yard line of Pacific. 3 receivers to the near side. And one motions to the far side. That's Noah Hobbs, left to right. Handoff McGee, right side stretch play to the far sideline, and runs out of room. Not a lot of space. Sancho Eskridge makes the tackle, and it's no gain. 2nd and 10 for Lewis and Clark. Pioneers trailing 7-0. Just underway in the opening quarter. Right to left, white tops, black pants, and helmets. Jonathan Newsom, the split receiver to the near side. Inside of him, Cordova. Ball on the far hash mark. Motion Hobbs again. Handoff. Hobbs gets a block by McGee. Tries to maneuver near side. Is brought down after a gain of 2. Tackle was made by Rob Wood and brings up 3rd down and long. Pioneers up front. Mercury Campagno is the near side tackle. Left side tackle with Matt Casson on the inside of him. The freshman center, Michael Lloyd. And then Nathan Lean and Alex Sandoval are the right side. Motion again, 3rd down and 7. Lewis and Clark. Cordova reverses, goes to the right side. Rolling right. Montana, pressure in his face. Got away for a moment. Grabbed from behind and brought down to Shane Stevens. Caught up to the Pioneers quarterback, and a loss back to the 42-yard line for Lewis and Clark brings up 4th and long. And the Pioneers bring out Huxley Richardson to punt. A 7-0 deficit for Lewis and Clark. The returner for Pacific is Ty Hargis. He's returned 6 kicks for an average of about 4. Punt back at the 30. Snap. Pressure in the face, line drive kick falling to the right side and out of bounds near the 23 of Pacific. About a 39-yard punt for Huxley Richardson in his first year kicking for Lewis and Clark. 3 and out, Pioneers. No, not a 3 and out. They got the first down on the very first passing play. They have to punt. Cordova had the catch. Let's see what Pacific does in its first real possession. Again, that turnover on the opening kickoff, first play, touchdown of 30 yards. 7-0 lead for Pacific, left to right, starting from their own 23-yard line. Handoff left side. And a patient run by Harris pushes the pile forward. It's a gain of 3. 7-0 Pacific, 12:36 to go. First quarter. Thanks for being with us on this audio broadcast from Pios Stream. If you're watching on our social media outlets, you may be able to see the live stats as they're posted up as well. Get you the Pioneers starting defense after the 2nd down and 5 from the Pacific 28-yard line, far hash under center. Harris, handoff, right side, give to Josh Harris, and a first down carry between the hash marks and up to the 35-yard line. Tackle made by Justin Hope for Lewis and Clark. First down Pacific. Kenyon Harris is the quarterback. Josh Harris is the running back. Pacific brings in a fullback for 1st and 10, using Isaac Unga, 5'9", 205-pound junior. 1st and 10, 35-yard line of Pacific. Play action, throw to the near side. Kyle Kern the reception on a curl route, and is brought down. Tanner Ono has the tackle after a 5-yard reception near side. Wind starting to whip a little bit from the right to the left in the face of Pacific, moving left to right in the black unis. Up front for Lewis and Clark, Nico Lang is the near side defensive end, senior 5'1", 180 pounds out of Palo Alto. And then the returning all-region player, Cameron Chang out of Honolulu, 6', 250 on the opposite side. 3-man front, 2nd down and 5 for Pacific. Handoff left side, trying to squeeze in on the tackle left side. Can't do it, right side instead, up the near side hash. And Josh Harris, a first down carry, gain of 6 across the 45. And Jake Bushman, the last to get up off the pile for Lewis and Clark defensively, the linebacker out of Clackamas High School. It's a 7-yard gain, 1st and 10 Pacific, trying to add to a 7-0 lead, 10:40 to go. First quarter, they scored on the opening play after a fumble by Lewis and Clark on the kickoff, a 30-yard touchdown pass. Kenyon Harris to Hargis. 1st and 10 Pacific. Its own 47, play action. Seam route batted down. It was Hope who got in front of the intended receiver. It's Hargis running up the seam, incomplete. Pioneers' interior defensive line has Ari Bleemer, senior 6'1", 250 out of Hayward, California, and Hawaii sophomore Ramson Paz, 6'1", 270. Marvin Pusang Zita is the near side defensive end, replacing Lang. San Francisco senior, 6', 215. Chang stays on the far side, 2nd down and 10 Pacific. Harris pass near side, and falling to grab it on the flat route is Josh Harris at midfield. A gain of 3 sets up 3rd and 7 for Pacific. Linebackers, we already mentioned Hope. First year competing sophomore season out of Sacramento. And then you have the senior Alex Hensley from Leander, Texas. One of the best linebackers in the Northwest Conference. And then you have the addition of Cleveland, Ohio sophomore Sam Meinhardt, who was Northwest Conference Defensive Student Athlete of the Week last week. All 3 on the field right now with Bushman. 4 linebackers on 3rd and 7. Snap, Harris sits in the pocket, throws left, caught Hargis, broke a tackle, breaks another up the far hash mark, and he was about a yard shy of the first down on the catch. Gains 4 after the catch, and a first down for Pacific on another 3rd down conversion. 9:33 first quarter. Boxer's 2nd possession. This started after the Lewis and Clark punt. Pacific driving, 8th play of the drive coming up. Now on the Lewis and Clark side. Left hash mark, 1st and 10 from the Pioneers' 39. One receiver split left, that's Kern. Handoff Josh Harris left side. And had a head of steam working down to the 35, a gain of 4 on first down. Drive started at the Pacific 23. Now the Boxers have it at the Lewis and Clark 35. Near side receivers, a pair. Isaac Pitry is the split receiver. Vargas inside. Harris looks left in the pocket. Now flush the right. A lot of time outside the hash marks. Wants to run. Tucks it to the near sideline and dodges out of bounds in front of Anakin Mares, the Pioneers' senior defensive back. A gain of 1. And brings up about a 3rd and 5 for Pacific. McConnell LeBoy is back out. Had an 86-yard interception return TD last week against Puget Sound. Was injured on the touchdown play by Pacific. Is now okay. Far side corner. Mares is the near side corner. Tanner Ono is the senior out of Honolulu at the near side safety. Deep safety is Silas Tyson, sophomore out of Renton, Washington. 3rd down and 5, Pacific, Lewis and Clark, 34. Throwing left, in route, Kern from the far side. Goes through his hands, had LeBoy in coverage at the 27-yard line. 4th down, Pacific. Line of scrimmage is the Lewis and Clark 34-yard line. On 4th downs this season, Pacific's 2nd best in the Northwest Conference at 60%. Lewis and Clark has the best 4th down conversion defense. Cash Taylor's the running back to the left side of Kenyon Harris, the quarterback in shotgun. 3 receivers split right with a tight end. Handoff, the give through the middle. Taylor working up the right hash marks is shy of the 1st down. He missed it by 2 yards. Tyson came up. Pusang Zita from the running back's right side stopped him. The 4th down conversion try is no good, and Lewis and Clark takes over on downs. $7:50 to go first quarter. Lewis and Clark has the ball back after stopping a 10-play, 43-yard drive. 1st and 10, Lewis and Clark from its own 31-yard line. Pioneers trailing 7-0, 7:50 to go first quarter. Cordova motioned by Cruz Montana, 1st and 10. Looking left, steps up and pressured. Ended up gaining a yard. The initial pressure was by Noah Steverson. And finally brought down. Braden Baker was there as well. Got back to the line of scrimmage, 2nd and 10 for Lewis and Clark. Baker's on the middle of a 3-man defensive front for Pacific. McGee's the running back. Motion Cordova, left to right. 2 receivers split to the right, makes it 3. Handoff, McGee, huge hole right side, and then smashed upright across the 35 and tackled forward progress to the 39. That was a big hit by the safety for Pacific. And stops McGee 2 yards shy of a 1st down. They gave credit for the sack on the 1st down play to Laughlin and Atkinson Siola. That hit was by Eskridge. 2nd down becomes 3rd down, 3rd down and 2. I formation, McGee behind the fullback Logan Herman. 3rd and 2. Play action. Montana throwing a deep ball near side. Verba Hamilton has it at the 27 of Pacific. Step for step with Declan Brown, and it's a 1st down. Lewis and Clark to the 25-yard line. A 35-plus yard gain for Lewis and Clark. And a 1st and 10 at the Pacific 25. 6:25 to go first quarter, trailing 7-0 to the Boxers. 3 receivers right, Newsom split to the left. Blitz, throw right side. On the screen, McGee looks for blocking outside the numbers to the 20 and is down at the 18-yard line. Tackle made by Wood. Gain of 7, 2nd and 3 for Lewis and Clark. 35-yard gain, Verba Hamilton to convert the 3rd and short. Pioneers go deep. Now we're at 2nd down and 2 from the 18 of Pacific. Passing play. Montana left side end zone over the head of Cordova. Outstretched right arm about the 1-yard line. Wood in coverage on the Pioneers' sophomore receiver. 3rd down and 3. Pioneers come in scoring the 2nd most points in the Northwest Conference. Boxers 4th most allowed. 3rd and 3 from the Pacific 18-yard line. McGee in the backfield. Cordova split to the right. No, actually slot receiver to the near side. That's Verba Hamilton split to the right. Running play and nowhere to go. Keeper by the quarterback, Chase Hoffman, flies in from the secondary and drops Montana for a loss of 3. Boxers not fooled on the running play by Montana, who's been running more as of late. Brings up 4th down. And Alex Koga, Pioneers kicker, is out to try a field goal. Between the hash marks, sets up an attempt of 38 yards out of the hold of Cordova. Koga's 8 of 11 this year. Into it with the wind and through. Pioneers do get on the board. And it's a 7-3 deficit for Lewis and Clark. 4:56 to play in the opening quarter on Pios Street.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my 2 group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, well, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.
.456 first quarter from Hansen Stadium, Forest Grove, Oregon, way out west of Portland. Pacific 7, Lewis and Clark 3. Pioneers score a drive of 7 plays, 48 yards. Kickoff to the 5-yard line of Pacific. Fast return, cutting left side between the numbers and hash, reversing field to the near side. On the loose, Tyler Vargas, 50-yard line. 40 of Lewis and Clark, and is tackled from behind. Julian Colvin finally caught up to Vargas. That return of about 45 yards. Pioneers score 7 plays, 48 yards, 2:54 off the clock. 9th field goal of the season by Alex Koga. But now Pacific in business, starting its 2nd of 3 possessions in Lewis and Clark territory. This one from the 35. Left to right, black tops, white helmets and pants. Right side hash mark, Kenyon Harris, the quarterback. Josh Harris back, the running back, to his left hip. Handoff straight through the middle up the right side hash. Meinhard and Mares make the stop, gain up to the, or down to the 32-yard line. A 30-yard touchdown pass from Kenyon Harris to Ty Hargis, and now a 45-yard kickoff return by Ty Vargas. Harris is the left side slot receiver inside of Pittry. 2nd down and 7, Lewis and Clark 32-yard line. Handoff, Josh Harris again through the middle. And Cameron Chang, the right side defensive end, a tackle after a gain of 2. It's 3rd and 5. Pacific, a lot of between the tackles running for Harris, who coming into today had 140 carries in 6 games. Averages 4.9 yards per carry. Has broken out a 64-yard run this year. Noah Carvalho out to the left side. Ball on the right side hash mark. Motion from Colton Smith. Slot receiver now left. Josh Harris, the running back. Play action. Pioneers run through the line. It was a screen, pass right side, incomplete, dropped by Hargis at the 33, brings up 4th and 5. Kern and Ethan Camsiege comes in. Camsiege is in the junior season out of Ontario, Oregon. So split backs to either side of Kenyon Harris. Josh Harris, the right side back. 4th down and 5. Kenyon Harris, good pocket. Now flushed. Penalty marker behind the play. Got away from Lang. Up the right side, hash marks between. And pushed ahead to the 16-yard line. Stands of a gain of 14. Pioneers make the tackle. Ari Bleemer caught up to it. Here's the official, referee Seth Neeson. So it's a penalty against Pacific, a holding call. Right at the line of scrimmage, pushes Pacific back to a 4th down and 15 at the Lewis and Clark 40. So Boxers pivoting and bring out Colin Weirdus to kick it away, standing back at the Pacific 45. Lewis and Clark does not have anyone back to return the kick. Line of scrimmage, Lewis and Clark 40. Snap. Weirdus kicks it away, but penalty markers out before the snap. So Lewis and Clark took a timeout. They did not have a returner back for the punt on 4th and 15. A 7-3 lead for Pacific over Lewis and Clark. 3:02 to play in the first quarter. Women's soccer is in action today at Whitworth, playing the Eastern Washington teams today and tomorrow. 1-1 in the early second half. Brecklin Bigley got the Pioneers even with Whitworth after the Pirates scored in the 21st minute. Bigley scores a high left goal in the 42nd minute to tie the game 1 apiece in Spokane. Weirdus set to kick it. This time Pioneers send Verba Hamilton back to return. Verba Hamilton this year averaging 15 yards per return, does have a 58-yard punt return this season. It was last week against Puget Sound. Kick is away. Good hang time. Bounces. Defender back to down it at the 1-yard line. Great play made by Zion Booker, the freshman out of Fairfield, California. And that kick goes for 44 yards, or excuse me, 39 yards, is down at the 1-yard line. Lewis and Clark has the football, but they start with a 99-yard drive needed to score a touchdown. 2:53 to go first quarter. Pioneers got a 38-yard field goal by Alex Koga last time out. They fumbled on the opening kickoff, and Pacific scored its touchdown on the next play. I formation, McGee behind Herman. Near side hash mark, right to left, Pioneers in white. Boxers crowd the line of scrimmage. 5 right in front of the offensive line. Pitch play right, McGee trying to get out of the end zone and was able to do so. There was a ton of traffic ahead of McGee. Looks like the last there was Baker. Even Montana, the quarterback, kind of tripped pitching the ball. So good push initially by Pacific sent the offensive line into Montana. So Herman comes out. Verba Hamilton's the far side receiver. Near side is Newsom. Pioneers have a tight end on the left side. And McGee deep. Montana's in shotgun. Aaron Krause, the right side tight end. Adrian Daffy on the near side. Handoff left. McGee tries to cut inside on an off tackle handoff left, and able to gain a yard. Brings up 2nd down and 9. Excuse me, brings up 3rd down and 9. Pioneers have a fairly new offensive line this year. Only Campagno, the left side tackle, is back with a lot of starting experience. 3rd down and 10 officially, so the original line of scrimmage was the 2. Pioneers at the 2-yard line. Still on the near side hash. Same formation as the last play. McGee halfway in the end zone. Play action. Montana tries to jump it out. Pressured, looks to throw, and got back out of the end zone at the last moment. Tackle was made by Michael Timmerman. Montana just could not find anyone downfield and pumped a couple of times looking as if he would throw, was not able to do so, and the Pioneers have to punt. Huxley Richardson back out, will have his heels in the back of the end zone. You can hear the wind ripping around a little bit. High snap, Richardson brings it down, sends it high in the air, and this is short. Goes to the near sideline toward Pacific, rolls across the 40 and out of bounds at the 41. Pretty good punt, all things considered, for Richardson. And with 39 seconds left in the first quarter, Pacific starts another drive in Lewis and Clark territory. 7-3 lead for Pacific. Boxers have started from the Pioneers 30. Pioneers 35, and this one starts from the Pioneers 40. It's actually marked out right at the 40. Left to right, black unis, white helmets and pants. Red trim for Pacific and quarterback Kenyon Harris, who has a touchdown pass in this game. Running back is Josh Harris. Stays in the block, throw left side, caught on the left side. Jaden Ramos goes to the far side numbers and is twisted down. Bushman was giving chase. The linebacker, Meinhard, caught him after a gain of 6 to the 34. 20 seconds, Pacific gets to the line of scrimmage late in the first quarter with a 7-3 lead. 3 receivers to the open side right. Harris, the quarterback, looks left, rolls right, tucks, goes one-on-one with Hope, and squeezes between him and Lang, the defensive end, for a gain to the 31, short of the first down as we end the first quarter. From Hanson Stadium, Forest Grove, Oregon, Northwest Conference football, Pacific Boxers 7, Lewis and Clark Pioneers 3. We invite you to come back. Second quarter is next on Pios Street.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
Start of the second quarter, Pacific 7, Lewis and Clark 3. Ryan Goff, their spotter Elena Goff, see a 3rd down and 1 for Pacific from the Lewis and Clark 31-yard line. Right side hash mark Pacific now right to left. Under center, Kenyon Harris, handoff to the tailback. Josh Harris, he split through the middle. It got to the second level, reverses at the 15, heads to the near side, and Josh Harris is in for a Pacific touchdown. Tenth rushing touchdown of the year for Harris at about 7 yards. It looked like he kind of tucked his shoulders down, got low, anticipating contact, and there wasn't much of it, and then cut it to the left side, angled toward the near pylon, and scored. PAT is good. It was not a good-looking PAT. The Almer makes it, and it's a 14-3 lead for Pacific. 3 plays, 40 yards. And that one just took 48 seconds for the 10th rushing touchdown of the season for Josh Harris. Significant in this sense. 14:51 to go second quarter. The Boxers add another touchdown 9 seconds into the second. They scored their first. 12 seconds into the game after Lewis and Clark fumbled the opening kickoff. Pioneers have 3 games left, including this one. They'll play at home for Senior Day against George Fox next week, and then play at nationally ranked Linfield on the 13th of November. Those are 2 teams that Pacific enters this game having already played. They're 2 of the best in the Northwest Conference. The wind is significant enough that the ball went off the tee. Maybe he just teed it up poorly because the wind's not whipping through the sidelines, but it's definitely going with the length of the field, right to left. It'll be with the kickoff by Zach Saros. Pioneers have Tony Rangel to the far side, near side of Desmond Holton. Holton does have an 80-plus yard kickoff return TD this year. Saros gets into it, angles it toward Holton, over his head and onto the P in the Pacific riding left side end zone. Touchback, Lewis and Clark has the ball back with 14:51 to go in the second quarter, trailing 14-3. Second touchback of the game by Saros. Pioneers have played Northwest Conference opponents with a combined record of 9-18 coming into today. Pacific's Northwest Conference opponents combined record of 11-15. So this is a big test for Lewis and Clark, one of the best teams in the Northwest Conference that the Pioneers have faced so far this year. 3 receivers left, 1 to the right. Pioneers start from their own 25. Flat route, throw to McGee. Could throw it again, instead McGee goes up the field along the far numbers and gains a couple. Timmerman comes off the pile with the tackle, a gain of 1 or 2. That ball was thrown as a backward pass, and we've seen Lewis and Clark throw off of those in the past. Didn't spy a receiver downfield. McGee looked like he was content to run. It's 2nd down and 8. 2 receivers either side. McGee to the right side of Montana. Snap to Montana. 3-man rush, throws over the middle. Cordova with a huge catch over his head, brought in at the 50-yard line. Down the near side hash marks, and Cordova went up and grabbed it, falling backwards. Nice snag by the Los Angeles sophomore. A sideline warning against Lewis and Clark on the play. Pioneers 1st down and a gain of 25. That's Cordova's 2nd big catch in this game. It's 14-3 deficit facing Lewis and Clark, with the football going left to right. Orange numbers on white tops, black pants and helmets from midfield, near side hash. 1st and 10. Cordova motions to the left side. Snap, Montana turns hands to McGee, starts left, reverses right. Verba Hamilton with a block to the near side numbers and pushed out at the sideline. Pushed out by Hoffman at the 42-yard line, a gain of 8 on 1st down. That's huge for the Pioneers. Joe Bushman is in his 4th season with the 3rd season with the team, 2nd with games being played as the offensive coordinator, associate head coach, likes 2nd and short. Tony Rangel's in the game. Play action. Montana in the pocket. Held the ball, looked downfield, and by the time he started to run, Steverson was there again, a sack and a loss of a half yard. A lot of good pressure today for the Pacific Boxers. Third down and 3 for Lewis and Clark. Pioneers are 1 of 4 on 3rd down so far today. Right side hash mark from the Pacific 43. Verba Hamilton, Hobbs near side, Cordova Newsom to the left side. Rangel stays in the block, throw over the middle, and incomplete. Montana was hit as he threw. Looks like Steverson again having an excellent day rushing the passer. Came in with the team high 6 sacks. The Pioneers have to punt. Huxley Richardson back on to punt. Steverson has 1.5 tackles for loss today. Punt bounces at the 15, fielded at the 10. Vargas able to settle it down and grab it, run forward to the 19-yard line. Tackle was made for the Pioneers. Is Cameron Chang out there? I think he's the long snapper for the Pioneers. If so, made a nice play. So Stevens has a sack today. In fact, 4 total for the Pacific defense. That's been a big deal. Pioneers' second possession where they've had a big pass play to Cordova and then they've had to kick. 1st and 10 snap Pacific, and around to the near side. And foot races. Carvalho gets all the way to the 20-yard line, up the field to the 30 and out of bounds past the 35-yard line, stepped out back at the 30, but a nice 11 or 12-yard gain on 1st down for the Boxers' junior receiver. 14-3, Pacific leads, 12:30 to go in the second quarter. Running back is Taylor. Kenyon Harris is the quarterback. 1st and 10 from the Pacific 31-yard line, right to left. Left side hash marks. And Harris hands off to Taylor, carries through the middle. And Meinhardt makes the stop after a 9-yard gain by Taylor, junior running back out of Hemet, California. Pacific has a player down just past the point where Taylor was tackled. Mid-50s today. This is a pretty nice complex that the city of Forest Grove works with Pacific University to have, and you see a panorama of fall colors. A lot of yellow, some green, and then the evergreens too. There's hills off to our left behind the scoreboard in the left side end zone. The barber pole behind it that stands, gosh, that's got to be at least 50, 60 feet in the air. It's right on the kind of the apex of the left side corner for the track that encircles this artificial turf field. It's Ledbetter Field at Hanson Stadium. 12:08 to play, second quarter. Injured Pacific player down. And it looks like it's Taylor who carried the ball. Pacific leading 14-3. You have the baseball and softball facilities in front of us and then off to the right. And then a practice field behind the far side stands directly in front of us. We stand just to the left side of the 50-yard line. And Lewis and Clark has a very good contingent of fans filling up the bleachers across the way that span from 142 to the other 42-yard line. Taylor has his arms over the shoulders of the athletic training staff wearing the red jackets for Pacific and is walking off the field. 12:08 to play, second quarter. Pacific 14, Lewis and Clark 3. Second down and 1. Pacific on the near side hash mark from its own 40-yard line. Tight receivers to the line, right side. Pitch play, right side. The give is to Kamsage and carries it for a first down toward the Lewis and Clark sideline. Kamsage, nice play that time for a first down gain up to the 44-yard line. Pacific hasn't been in a lot of third downs yet today. They've converted 2 of 4. That was not the case. That was a second down carry. Now it's 1st and 10 from the 44 of Pacific. Right side hash marks, 2 receivers to the near side, and 2 running backs. Kamsage, play action to him, throw to Vargas, caught near side, breaks a tackle at the 49 into Lewis and Clark territory. And is close to a first down. Ono and Bushman help make the tackle. First down to the Lewis and Clark 46-yard line on that pass play. So far rushing, Joshua Harris is 59 yards and a touchdown. Carvalho, who had the end around, picked up 12, and Taylor, who left injured, has 12 rushing yards for Pacific. 1st and 10 from the Lewis and Clark 46, right to left. Pacific handoff. Give, Kamasij, left side, steps inside of a tackler at the 40, up the sideline, 30, breaks another tackle, 20, and into the end zone for Pacific. A 46-yard rushing touchdown for Kamasij. His second of the year, it's a 20-3 lead for Pacific. That drive had started at the Pacific 19-yard line. 5 plays, 81 yards, 2:07 off the clock, and the PAT is good. Thanks for everyone joining us. An audio-only presentation of Lewis and Clark football on Pios Stream. 10:48 to go, second quarter. Pacific 21, Lewis and Clark 3. We'll be back with more in a moment on Pios Stream.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my 2 group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, well, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.
.10:48 to play, second quarter. Pacific has scored on back-to-back big rushing touchdowns. That time, a score of 46 yards by Kamasij. 5 plays, 81 yards after the 3-play, 40-yard drive that Joshua Harris scored on. Lewis and Clark opened up with the football, fumbled on the kickoff, and since Pacific has taken a 21-3 lead. Josh Harris, the running back for Pacific's on the bike and was out for a lot of that series. But Kamasij filled in admirably. The Ontario-Oregon junior. Ontario's well out on the very east side of the state. Makes it 21-3 with 10:48 to play in the second quarter. Pioneers have not been able to return the last 2 Zach Saros kickoffs. Has it teed up. It's set to boot it away right to left. Angling toward Holton, foot in the end zone, brings it out, 10-yard line, up the near side hash, hesitates, and then is plowed down shy of the 20-yard line. Had to return it, the ball was not going to get into the end zone. At least it was not a guarantee. Nice play by a couple of the Boxers' coverage team. Sean Evans was there. Last 2 Lewis and Clark drives. A 3-and-out with a punt, and then they had a nice 25-yard reception by Isaac Cordova and couldn't do anything with it around midfield, had to punt it away. Lewis and Clark's points on a 38-yard field goal by Alex Koga, and Lewis and Clark starts from the 18-yard line. 3 of the 4 Pioneers drives have been so far starting from the 25-yard line or worse. Near side hash, Cruz Montana, the quarterback, 6'2", 195, getting set to snap it, but a delay of game before the snap. Seth Neeson is the referee, Todd Ludke umpire. Sean Walker, head linesman, Gus Morrison is the line judge. Sign judge Joe Horn, Matthew Bemrose is the field judge, and Amy Pistone is the back judge. 1st and 15, low snap to Montana, steps up, runs through the middle, there's a big hole, sidesteps a defender at the 20-yard line and carries it up to the 22-yard line. Tackle was made after Hoffman was deked, and Montana able to carry it forward for an 8-yard gain, sets up 2nd down and 6. Officially a 9-yard gain. Snap to Montana, handoff McGee, spinning through traffic, Just shy of the 25-yard line. Gains 2. McGee is sitting down, lost his shoe on the tackle. Gets up, goes shoeless to the far side, has to sub out. Rangel comes in. New Pioneers running backs coach Marcus Lattimore motions him in, has 15 to snap. Rangel's the deep back, freshman out of California. Snap, play action, Montana. Throws into the near sideline, got rid of it. He had 3 defenders on him. There's no defender to the near side, but got it to the line of scrimmage and was outside the pocket, able to avoid the intentional grounding. But the Pioneers face a 4th down and 3. The pressure has been intense. Lucas Gilgan is the defensive coordinator in his 6th season and has done a great job rushing the passer today. Pioneers allow the 7th most sacks in the 18 Northwest Conference. 3rd most sacks per game by the Pacific defense, and it's playing out that way. Richardson has to kick it away from the 10. Boots it to the near sideline. Fair catch on a backpedaling Vargas's right arm. And brings it in at the 35-yard line. A 40-yard kick for Richardson, and the Pioneers will go back to work defensively with 9:23 to play in the 2nd quarter. Pioneers have had 4 of their 5 possessions so far end in a punt. Richardson's averaging 37 yards per kick. 1st and 10 Pacific from its own 35-yard line, leading 21-3. Handoff through the middle, and Josh Harris has returned carries for a gain of 1. Hope made the tackle along with Meinhardt. Gain of 1, 2nd down and 9 for Pacific, with 9:06 to play in the 2nd quarter at a 21-3 lead. Touchdown runs for the Boxers of 31 yards by Harris and 46 yards by Kamasij. 2nd down and 9, 2 receivers, right side, 1 to the left. Kenyon Harris double move, near side, looking for Kern. It couldn't bring it in. About 1.5 yards ahead of him at the Lewis and Clark 35 on the near sideline. LaBoy was in coverage. Incomplete, 3rd and 9 for Pacific. That's a big 3rd down for Lewis and Clark. Boxers have not been held to a 3-and-out today. Have to get past the 45. Snap to Kenyon Harris. Drops back. Steps up. Fires a bullet. Caught Lewis and Clark half at the 45-yard line. And working upfield to the 42. The reception is made by Pittry. Hope finally caught up to him, but that's a big gain for the Pacific Boxers, the Lewis and Clark 42-yard line. First catch for the sophomore, Isaiah Pittry out of Oakland, California. 8:21 to play on a moving 2nd quarter clock. 21-3 lead for Pacific, and a gain of 24 on 3rd down. I formation. Josh Harris, the deep back, gets the handoff and has 8 yards. Nearly. Nah, it was less than that. It seemed like an 8-yard gain. He picks up 5. DJ Smith was in the game. He exchanges out for fellow defensive lineman Ari Bleemer for Lewis and Clark. Harris had so much momentum, but also started so far back in the offensive backfield, it looked like an 8-yard gain right off the bat. Dominic Funk is in out of Forest Grove High School. Right side tight end, I formation, Josh Harris. Play action to him. Kenyon Harris, the quarterback, steps up, weaves to the right, and then goes underneath. It kind of just falls in front of Meinhardt. Had Bleemer chasing him down, close to a 1st down. And they give it to him. Officials signal 1st down at the 32. And the middle of the field was open. And then Kenyon Harris went down low and kind of ran his helmet straight into Meinhardt's knees. 1st and 10 Pacific with a 21-3 lead. 7:08 to play, second quarter. Right to left, Pacific in black tops, white bottoms, and helmets. One receiver to left is Kern. I formation again. Handoff Josh Harris. Cuts outside of Alex Hensley, the linebacker, near sideline, and goes out of bounds. LeBoy was in the vicinity, as was Sammy Gonzalez, who's in at the safety spot for Lewis and Clark. Gain of 5. Right now, Harris is averaging over 7 yards per carry for Pacific. Ian Falconer is the second-year head coach for Pacific. Jim Kraft in his second year calling plays. Sends Vargas in the slot right side with Pitry. But a big 24-yard reception to convert a third down on this drive. Left side receiver is Kern. Handoff. This give goes to Taylor, who's back in after leaving earlier with an injury. Another 5-yard gain and a first down. Chang with the tackle for Lewis and Clark, but Pacific is moving the chains. Started from their own 35-yard line. Now to the Lewis and Clark 21. A 21-3 lead. Far side receiver, William Bookland is in. Out of Hawaii at 175, the freshman, 1 of 3 right side. Ball on the left side hash. Pioneers rush 5. Screen play, Kamasish catches it over his head right side, out the numbers, penalty markers out. And Kamasish is all the way down to the 10-yard line for an 11-yard gain before the penalty. So far, each team has had 1 penalty accepted. Stops the clock, 5:37 to play in the second quarter. That's the second holding call against the Boxers. This running play is wiped out. And it happened well back at the 25-yard line. No, it happened at the 15. So it marks it back to the 25. It's a first down and 14. That's a spot foul. So Kern really likes to stay split out to the short side of the field. He's to the right of this formation. Vargas split out to the left. Vargas in the slot. Ball knocked down at the line of scrimmage on the first down snap. The pass by Kenyon Harris is incomplete. .524 to go second quarter. 21-3 lead for Pacific. Unga comes back in as the fullback for the Boxers. He was in quite a bit on the first couple of snaps of this drive. He'll lead the way for Josh Harris. Smith is the left side tight end. 1 of 2 on that side of the field with Braden Lowe. They go left side, and Harris is to the second level quickly, drags Ono for about 5 yards down to the 10-yard line. A gain of 15. Ono's tackle attempt was enough to bring Harris down, but a first down for Pacific. The Boxers have first and goal, trying to add on to a 21-3 lead with 5 minutes to play in the second quarter. Lowe shifts to the right side, tight end. Kern is left side, one-on-one with LeBoy. First and goal from the 10. Handoff, Harris. And this time he's stood up by Hensley, refuses to go down. Hensley bounces off of him and then goes back toward him and grabs at the legs, a gain of 2. Left side rush by Harris. Hensley's a beast of a linebacker, comes in with 32 tackles this year. Great leadership from Hensley. Plays almost every snap for the Pioneers. Pusung Zita's in. David Seha's in on the defensive line with Paz. A 4-man defensive front for Lewis and Clark. Pacific second and goal from the Lewis and Clark 8, 2 running backs. Option play. Takes it back on the read, runs right. Kenyon Harris to the goal line, and he's in. They use Josh Harris's success at 7.2 yards per carry. And Lewis and Clark's defense went to the offense's left. And Harris runs to the right and scores an 8-yard touchdown. It's 27-3 Pacific. Kenyon Harris's second rushing touchdown, PAT, is up and through. We'll recap the drive. There was a key conversion in that drive for Pacific. And with 4:05 to left in the second quarter, Pacific 28, Lewis and Clark 3. Back with more in a moment on Pios Street.
I think everyone should take intro to chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed education in a complex world. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was international affairs, just intro to international affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
Kickoff is short by Pacific. Bounces, gets past Lewis and Clark's returner. Rangel has to go back to the 1, picks it up far side, and there's 5 or 6 Pacific defenders on the coverage team around him. A miscue for Lewis and Clark, and the Pioneers have to start behind their own 5-yard line. 4 minutes left, second quarter. Pacific 28, Lewis and Clark 3. A 22-yard third down conversion reception by Isaiah Pitry was key on that last Pacific touchdown drive. The Boxers have scored on their last 3 possessions. That was a 12-play, 65-yard drive, a 5:18 off the clock. So for the second time in this game, Lewis and Clark starts at its 5 or worse. They had one drive start at the 2. Ben Burnham's in the game. Slot receiver to the near side with Verba Hamilton split out. Snap from the 5, 1st and 10. Montana in the end zone. Lobs it left side, looking for Holton. And a penalty marker's out, one-on-one coverage. Battling up the far sideline with Brown. Penalty marker's thrown near the 36. Good protection that time for Lewis and Clark. The Pioneers have allowed 4 sacks today. That's a pass interference call against Pacific. It's a first down for Lewis and Clark. 3rd penalty for the Boxers. Pioneers have a 1st and 10 at their own 20. 3:54 to go in the second quarter. Pacific 28, Lewis and Clark 3. Lewis and Clark has the ball. Pioneers left to right in white. Far side hash mark, ball placed down. Cordova motions to the near side of the formation. Snap at the chest of Montana. Handoff McGee, tries the left side, cuts right, and as he did, he was grabbed on the right ankle by Stevens and dropped for a loss. A loss of 1 for Lewis and Clark. Pioneers started with the football. Pacific has the right to it in the second half. Snap Montana. Pressure from his left. Lobs a high ball over the top, looking for the receiver left side at the 40. Incomplete. Intended for Newsom. I think Brown had the coverage again on that play. Brings up 3rd down and 11. That was a very high arcing lob pass from Montana. 3rd down and 11, Lewis and Clark. Newsom's back, split left, 3 receivers right. Pioneers try a quick snap fake. Pacific holds its ground. 12 on the play clock. Pioneers get a call in from the sideline. Left side hash snap to Montana. 4-man rush by Pacific. Surveys over the middle. Good patience, throws the ball. Tipped up in the air and incomplete at the 35-yard line. Cordova had a chance, couldn't bring it in, and Hoffman tried to lunge for an interception. That didn't come in either between the far numbers and hash. Incomplete pass. And the Pioneers back out to punt again. Huxley Richardson, 4 kicks so far today, 37-yard average, back at the 5. Hargis is back to return it at the 50. Spiraling kick, penalty marker out from the back judge. Rolls at the 40 of Pacific, continues to go left to right. It is downed inside the 30. Pioneers seeking a break. Lewis and Clark has to hope that that penalty marker is not against it. Down at the 29-yard line. Seth Neeson about to make the call. Personal foul. A face mask against Pacific. So not only does the punt count, but 15 more yards added to it. It was a 52-yard kick and ends up being a 67-yard play, puts Pacific back all the way to the Boxers' 14-yard line. 3 minutes even to play second quarter. Lewis and Clark trailing 28-3. Pacific has the ball back. One of the first starting points for Pacific today. They'll start at the 15. Quick snap, Kenyon Harris, the quarterback. Quick throw near side. Caught up at the chest, works to the near sideline and pushed out of bounds. Reception is made by Vargas. And Bushman had the stop. Gain of 9 yards for Pacific. Left side hash, quick snap, Kenyon Harris. Has a man behind him, throws right, and incomplete. Kern dropped it at the 33-yard line. I think Cameron Chang was closing in on Kenyon Harris and nearly had a sack. Harris got it away in time. 3rd down and 2 for Pacific. And the Boxers use their first timeout. 2:31 left to go. 28-3, Pacific leads in the second quarter. Scoring summary so far today. Boxers took a fumble away from Lewis and Clark in the opening kickoff, scored 14 seconds into the game. 30-yard touchdown pass, Kenyon Harris to Ty Hargis. Made it 7-0. Lewis and Clark scored with 4:56 left in the first. That was a 38-yard field goal by Alex Koga. But since 21 unanswered points by the Pacific, all second quarter TDs. 9 seconds in, Harris, a 31-yard rush for Josh. Then Camasee scored on a 46-yard run play shy of the 10-minute mark. And then on the last drive, Kenyon Harris scored on a 9-yard rush. First Pacific timeout. 2:31 left in the second, leading 28-3. Pacific has a 3rd down and 2. Boxers on 3rd down today have converted 3 of 5. Snap, Kenyon Harris gives it to Josh Harris. He was grabbed from his right side, falls forward, and is very close to a 1st down. Chang had the tackle. And Harris is short. It's 4th down. In fact, the far side official looked like they were giving Harris more yardage than the near side official, to which the play was ran. Now they move it. And Josh Harris was about a ½ yard short. And Harris, when he falls forward at 6'1", gains some yardage. Instead, a punt for Pacific. Weird's first one went 39 yards, stands back at the 10. Kicks it in front of Lang, who was rushing for Lewis and Clark. Drives Verba Hamilton back, can't field it cleanly. Trying to pick it up, he touched it. The ball is free at the 10. Pacific's in front of it, fall on it at the 1. Down at the 1-yard line for Pacific by Rustin Williams off the muffed punt by Aiden Verba Hamilton. Couldn't field it on the fly and then tried to chase it down, could never pick it up back at the 20. And it's kicked all the way down to the 2-yard line. Pios' second flub of the day. It just basically touched Verba Hamilton. He never had control, didn't muff it. Ball never was received by him in the air. Goal line formation. Josh Harris, the deep back, 1st and goal, Pacific from the 2. And Harris squeezes through, easy touchdown. could see the senior Verba Hamilton kind of beating himself up in terms of his body language as he headed to the sideline. You can tell someone as capable as Verba Hamilton to make a game-changing play for the positive for Lewis and Clark with that kind of punt return. So desperate to get the ball back and could just never bring it in. PAT is good with 1:31 left. 35-3 is the Pacific lead, and then there's a bunch of pushing and a whole bunch of penalty markers come out after the kick is good. There's right now 3 penalty flags down and 1 official's hat, which was thrown by the referee, Seth Neeson. We don't have a tap into the public address system, so we can't get you the referee's audio cleanly, but we'll turn up the crowd mic so we can take a listen. 1:31 left in the first half, Pacific 35-3. After the Boxers score on the very first play, following the punt that was touched by Verba Hamilton of Lewis and Clark and recovered by Pacific at the Lewis and Clark 2-yard line. And that's what I'm saying. You have Verba Hamilton, someone who's returned a punt for a touchdown this year. Averages 15 yards per return. Anytime the ball can get into Verba Hamilton's hands, it's good, but just did not field the kick cleanly. He was around it. It looked like something that Verba Hamilton would have been able to field on the fly. Instead, it bounced next to him. And then he tried to pick it up running backward and couldn't recover.
Defense number 36. That will be first on the kickoff. Halftime will be extended 5 minutes for review. Number 36 is disqualified. Pacific. After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct. Lewis and Clark, number 36. Those fouls offset. It is all players' first unsportsmanlike conduct fouls of the game. However, number 36 is previously disqualified.
All right, so there was a lot of stuff that Seth Neeson had to read off. So as it stands, it was a targeting call against Lewis and Clark defensive lineman David Seha. The senior is disqualified from the game, but they do extend halftime 5 minutes because they can try to review the penalty and see if the targeting was in fact the case. And then 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties against both teams. Those offset. So the kick is going to happen from midfield for Pacific because of the targeting call against David Seha. 35-3, Pacific leads Lewis and Clark, 1:31 left in the first half. And this game is very similar to what happened in 2019. Pacific built a 35-0 lead at halftime. Pioneers have played better. They certainly have played better than they did in 2019. But it's not gone Lewis and Clark's way so far. So a short kick, angled toward the near side, bounces. Holton picks it up at the 7, runs laterally to the left, and is tackled inside the 7-yard line, marked down near the 5. Tackle was made by the secondary, the defensive back, Nico Iosufa. Lewis and Clark has the ball, trailing 35-3, 1:27 left in the opening half. Pioneers start again from deep in their own territory. The last drive started at the 5. This one starts at the 6. Cruz Montana, the quarterback. Elijah McGee is the tailback, and they bring Verba Hamilton to the left side of the formation to be the slot inside of Newsom, who's split out. Adrian Daffy, the right side, or left side tight end. The right side is Aaron Krause. Handoff McGee. McGee fights his way first to the left, cuts back to the right, and between the hash marks, carries up to the 8-yard line, a quick gain of 2. Gain of 3. Timmerman made the tackle for Pacific. Pioneers let the clock wind under 59 seconds to play in the second quarter. Same formation. Montana back behind the 5-yard line. Line of scrimmage is the 9. Zone read handoff. The give goes to McGee. Carries up the right hash for another gain of 2 to the 11-yard line. Tackle was made by Williams. Williams was the one who was able to recover the muffed punt by Verba Hamilton. Right on the doorstep, and Pacific scored its second touchdown off a miscue on special teams for Lewis and Clark. 3rd down and 5 from the 11 for Lewis and Clark. 7-second snap to Montana, handoff McGee. Starts left, reverses back to the right, cuts inside of the block of Kraus and is able to get up to the 15-yard line. Short of a first down, but the quarter has expired. Now the teams exit the field. Halftime will be longer because of the targeting review that the officials will have to do. David Seha currently stands as disqualified from the game. And at halftime from Hanson Stadium, Ledbetter Field, on the campus of Pacific University in Forest Grove, Oregon, Pacific Boxers 35, Lewis and Clark Pioneers 3. We'll have an extended timeout for the halftime break. And when we come back, we'll take a look at the Northwest Conference scoreboard. Elena Goff will have that for you. We'll also take a look at what happened earlier in the Northwest Conference Cross Country Championships that were held in McMinnville, Oregon, hosted by Linfield. Lewis and Clark had a very outstanding day, getting 3 All-Northwest Conference first-team selections and even more on the broader All-Conference selections as well. We'll have that when we come back. Ryan Goff inviting you for the halftime report when we return. 35-3 Pacific leads Lewis and Clark on Pios Stream.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my 2 group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, well, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
I think everyone should take intro to chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed education in a complex world. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was international affairs, just intro to international affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
I'm Ann Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this research group, I supervise the 2 students working in the Rogers program this summer in our lab. The brown bag experience is a good chance for students to get experience presenting their work that they've done in the lab, especially to an audience that's not technical.
What's intriguing about the brown bag experience is it incorporates all of the Rogers program. So I'm able to hear people in the psychology department and what research they're doing, but it also gives us the opportunity to share our research with the greater science community at Lewis and Clark. And for incoming students, the summer program is really beneficial for getting opportunity in research. So I've had the opportunity for research in the past, but other students may not have the same opportunities. So it's nice to work in a professional lab setting and potentially have the opportunity to publish a paper, which looks really good moving on into doing professional research out in the field.
The students grow a lot during the summer in their ability to learn the techniques and apply the techniques and suggest their own ideas for what could come next and interpret their data. It's just a big, usually if they haven't done research before, they learn a lot in that short period of time.
It's halftime on the Hill. Time for a look at what else is going on in the world of Lewis and Clark athletics and throughout the Northwest Conference. We want to hear from you on Twitter and Snapchat. Find us at LC Pioneers. Back to Portland, Oregon for the Pios Stream Halftime Report.
We've taken Pios Stream way out west of Portland to Forest Grove, Oregon. That is where we broadcast from. Northwest Conference football, halftime score Pacific Boxers 35, Lewis and Clark Pioneers 3. I am Ryan Goff, as we'll take a look at what's going on elsewhere in Lewis and Clark athletics today. We'll do that in just a few minutes. Appreciate being with us wherever you may be. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter today, in addition to lcpioneers.com. Other games going on in the Northwest Conference. There are 4 games simultaneously in football today, as there are for the duration of the 2021 schedule, excuse me. And Lewis and Clark now playing against Pacific, against the Boxers. This is their 3rd to final game of the year. They'll be at home against George Fox next weekend, and then we'll play on the road at Linfield to close out the 2021 season. Both teams coming into today at a total of 3-3 in the overall record column and 2-2 in Northwest Conference. Elena Goff is here. We'll take a look at the Northwest Conference scoreboard. Let's start, Elena, with taking a look at what's going on at Linfield.
Linfield has 28 points, and George Fox has 0 points.
Right now, that game is being played. How much time left in the second quarter?
4 minutes and 16 seconds exactly.
All right, let's go over to Willamette hosting Pacific Lutheran.
Pacific Lutheran has 17 points, Willamette with 0 points.
And that game is currently at halftime. And then Puget Sound is hosting Whitworth.
Yes, Whitworth has 41 points, and Puget Sound has 7.
Let's take a look at some of the scoring plays for Whitworth so far.
Jaden Rush left for 30 yards to the 41 points, Whitworth, and 7
for Puget Sound. Yeah, so that was Pruitt. We saw Pruitt, who had a 30-yard rushing touchdown in the second quarter. The only points of the second quarter, Whitworth scored 34 points in the opening quarter of that game, which is pretty impressive for the Whitworth Pirates, who come into this weekend nationally ranked. Let's take a look at some of the other games impacting Lewis and Clark athletics programs. Right now, Lewis and Clark women's soccer is playing at Whitworth, and they are in the second overtime. Let's take a look at the score there.
2 for Whitworth and 2 for Lewis and Clark.
Let's take a look at the scores. Who had the goal for Lewis and Clark in the first half?
Brecklin
Bigley. And then Celeste Schreifel scored the second one, and that was in the 88th minute. So Lewis and Clark tied the game after Whitworth took, in the 86th minute, a 2-1 lead. So Schreifels able to score. Bigley had the assist on that one to make it 2-2. So those two teams are playing right now second overtime. They're about 3 minutes away from a potential draw in Spokane, Washington. Let's take a look at what's happening tonight for Lewis and Clark.
Women's volleyball, Lewis and Clark at Willamette at 6 p.m. tonight.
And then on Halloween,
yes,
let's take a look at what's happening.
Rowing at Portland Fall Classic. And then women's soccer, Lewis and Clark at Whitman at 12 p.m.
And then the other thing that's happening on Monday is we'll have the first men's basketball game of the year.
At Lewis and Clark at Portland at 7 p.m. And then we have Tuesday, November 2nd, we have women's basketball, Lewis and Clark at Western Oregon at 6 p.m.
And then our next football game will be Senior Day for Lewis and Clark.
Football, George Fox versus Lewis and Clark at 1 p.m.
And that'll be at Griswold Stadium in Portland. That's next Saturday. Thank you very much, Elena, for that scoreboard update. 14 minutes left on the halftime clock, and we say that only because it's an extended halftime because they're taking a look at the targeting call that was whistled on David Seha of Lewis and Clark in the first half. So an extra 5 minutes added on to the halftime clock. So we'll take another break. We'll come back with more from Hansen Stadium. The score Pacific 35 and Lewis and Clark 3. We'll have more coming up on our halftime report in just a moment on Pios Stream.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts, because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.
I think everyone should take Intro to Chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed Education in a Complex World. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was International Affairs, just Intro to International Affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds, me being an econ major and my 2 group mates being chemistry majors. We really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, well, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
I'm Ann Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach.
I'm Ann Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this research group, I supervise the 2 students working in the Rogers program this summer in our lab. The brown bag experience is a good chance for students to get experience presenting their work that they've done in the lab, especially to an audience that's not technical.
What's intriguing about the brown bag experience is it incorporates all of the Rogers program. So I'm able to hear people in the psychology department and what research they're doing, but it also gives us the opportunity to share our research with the greater science community at Lewis and Clark. And for incoming students, the summer program is really beneficial for getting opportunity in research. So I've had the opportunity for research in the past, but other students may not have the same opportunities, so it's nice to work in a professional lab setting and potentially have the opportunity to publish a paper, which looks really good moving on into doing professional research out in the field.
The students grow a lot during the summer in their ability to learn the techniques and apply the techniques and suggest their own ideas for what could come next and interpret their data. It's just a big, usually if they haven't done research before, they learn a lot in that short period of time.
Halftime continues from Forest Grove, Oregon, Hanson Stadium, halftime Northwest Conference football. Ryan Goff back with you at halftime as Lewis and Clark trails 35-3. I want to give a big shout out to former Lewis and Clark sports information director, just a full-blown public relations professional, Chuck Charnquist, who died at the age of 89. Great article written today. Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian put something on OregonLive.com. Longtime Portland Trailblazers statistician, historian. Chuck was amazing, and before this game started, had multiple people from Pacific's staff, not just athletic communications, but the public address announcer as well, come into our booth and ask if we had anything to mention about Chuck. They did a moment of silence before the game started for Chuck, and there is a quote in the Oregonian piece from Chuck's son Eric. You know, he had that kind of influence on the younger PR side of things in terms of the storytelling. He was very gentle, is a word that was described not only in the Oregonian piece, but in some of the staff members who wrote me back when I shared that with a lot of our public communications staff. Just had a really smooth way of sharing the history when he told stories from his time, not only in an official role. You know, Chuck was 20 plus years in the public information side for athletics and at Lewis and Clark in general, but then he was just always there to provide insight. I remember writing Chuck numerous times when we needed information, whether it was related to the Hall of Fame or context. Here's a perfect example. Last winter, there was a tree that fell during an ice storm that affected the Portland area. I live down in Salem. It was icy and trees were falling all around my neighborhood too. You could hear the crackles across the block as trees were falling throughout the area. And unfortunately, on the Lewis and Clark College campus, one of those trees fell on the Lewis and Clark tennis dome, and it deflated the dome. And so Lewis and Clark last spring played matches outside, and I remember emailing Chuck to ask, do you have any idea when the last outdoor matches were held on campus for Lewis and Clark, and that was one of the things that Chuck was exceptional at. In fact, in this piece from the Oregonians, Aaron Fentress was known as the quote-unquote answer man, and Chuck was really great at that. We'll miss him a lot. Chuck passed away this past week at the age of 89, and there's some great words in there, quotes from, again, his son Eric, some great moments to share. A graduate of the class of 1958. We'll post that on our Twitter feed, twitter.com/LC Pioneers. Halftime continues. We'll have the opening part of the second half, the kickoff, and see if Lewis and Clark can get back into this game, trailing 35-3 on the road at Pacific. The Pioneers come in 3-3 on the year, Pacific 3-3 as well. But right now, Lewis and Clark trailing 35-3 on Pios Stream.
I think everyone should take intro to chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed education in a complex world. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was international affairs, just intro to international affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts. Because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my 2 group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, well, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
Getting set for the start of the second half. Both teams have returned to the field. And what we'll do, too, is we don't get official word on whether David Seha was confirmed to have targeted in the first half. That was the reason the extra 5 minutes were added at halftime, was to review film. So we'll take the binoculars out and let you know if we see number 36 on the Lewis and Clark sideline. Meanwhile, Lewis and Clark set to kick the ball away, trailing 35-3. Started the second half from Hansen Stadium, an artificial turf field, as part of the city of Forest Grove. City of Forest Grove complex, as the ball is off the tee. So I suspected this, and we didn't go down to the field at halftime. Perhaps we should have, to see what the wind is actually like down there, but it's blown off the tee a couple of times. And so Hayden Moses, the senior kicker for Lewis and Clark, motions one of his teammates to come in and hold the ball for him. That's Ben Burnham, who walks over from the near side for Lewis and Clark. Will hold it for the right-legged kicker. Lewis and Clark in white tops, orange numbers, black and orange trim, with the orange number on the left side of the helmet, which is matte black. Lewis and Clark has the logo on the other side, and then black pants. The kick is away, angled toward the far side, running back into the end zone. Here comes Tyler Vargas, works to the middle of the field, cuts it to the near side, runs up at the 30, near side numbers, and is caught from behind. Keegan Hawley was around, Logan Herman was too, and hustling up the field to try to make the stop, Will Powell did a good job catching up with the play as well. Powell was a little bit slow getting up, but that return for Pacific goes all the way to the Boxers' 44-yard line. And that is where Pacific starts its first possession of the second half. Pacific scored on basically all of its last possessions, 4 TDs in the second quarter. Officials take a timeout to get things set. 14:51 to go third quarter. Pacific has the ball and a 35-3 lead. The quarterback is Kenyon Harris out of Ogden, Utah. Harris starts the drive from the Pacific 44, going left to right, black tops, white helmets, and white pants with red trim. And right off the bat, Josh Harris quickly into the second level, ran all the way to the Lewis and Clark 46 before he was touched, and carried it all the way to the 36-yard line. A nice run on first down for Pacific. Harris in the first half had 14 carries for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. That one's a 20-yard gain on first down. Harris a 31-yard touchdown run and a 2-yard touchdown run as well. First and 10 from the Lewis and Clark 36. Harris tries the right side, ran kind of parallel with the offensive line. Hensley and Sam Meinhard make the tackle. Alex Hensley and Sam Meinhard a gain of 2. Hargis scored on a 30-yard touchdown reception to start the game for Pacific. Lewis and Clark had fumbled the opening kickoff, a first and 10 snap from the 30, and Kenyon Harris found Ty Hargis for a 30-yard touchdown. That made it 7-0 in the first quarter. Pioneers got a 38-yard field goal by Alex Koga to make it 7-3. Second down, handoff up the right side hash marks, and Harris plows forward down to the 31-yard line, a gain of 3, and brings up a third down and 5. The second quarter touchdowns, the 2 Harris runs bookended a 46-yard touchdown run by Ethan Kamasij. And then Kenyon Harris had a 9-yard run on a play fake to Josh Harris. Two running backs in either side of Kenyon Harris, motion from the near side or the far side of the formation, and a penalty marker's out before the snap on 3rd and 5, a false start against Pacific. So here's your team stats. Total yards, Pacific 313, Lewis and Clark 118. That includes the first couple of snaps of this quarter. Right now 13-13 left in the third. Pacific 35, Lewis and Clark 3. Total of 14 first downs for the Boxers, 5 for Lewis and Clark. Boxers were 3 of 6 on 3rd down, Lewis and Clark 2 of 8. 3rd down and 10 from the Lewis and Clark 36 for Pacific. Kenyon Harris throws right side and incomplete. Dropped it as the receiver churned out of bounds. Kyle Kern could not hold on to it. The linesman initially on the backside of the play was getting set to call it a complete pass. But the official on the sideline ran in and called it an incomplete pass, which was the right call. As Kern spun toward the sideline, the ball came free. Out comes Colin Weirdus to kick it away. First half, Weirdus kicked twice for 54 yards. Stands right behind the 50-yard line to boot it. Aiden Verba Hamilton back near the 5-yard line for Lewis and Clark. Low snap at the knees. Weirdus brings it up. End over end kick, 20-yard line, 10-yard line. Fielded at the 2 by Verba Hamilton, stumbling out of a crowd to the near side. Gets to the 5, reverses back in between the hash marks, and maybe stays near the 5. Not much running room for Verba Hamilton as that kick is from the line of scrimmage of like the 40. So the Pioneers will start again deep in their own territory. Lewis and Clark trails 35-3. 12:35 to go in the third quarter. Lewis and Clark starts from its own 9-yard line, trying to get back into a game in which they trail 35-3. This is the 4th Lewis and Clark drive to start inside the Pioneers' 10-yard line. Cruz Montana, the quarterback. Elijah McGee is the tailback. Lewis and Clark right to left. Between the hash marks, 1st and 10, Michael Lloyd is the freshman center. Pioneers have Adrian Daffy and Aaron Krause in his tight ends. 2 receivers split right. Cruz runs to the right. McGee lead blocks for Cruz Montana. Montana has a carry near the far side numbers up to the 15-yard line. A quick gain of 6 on 1st down. Montana, like I mentioned in the first half, has been running more as this schedule flips to kind of the second half of the Northwest Conference slate against Willamette. 2 weeks ago, had a career-high 16 carries for 48 yards. Snap to Montana on 2nd down, handoff to McGee. Already pressure in the backfield. McGee has nowhere to run. Nice play for Pacific by Carter Atkins, the sophomore out of Sherwood, Oregon. Disrupted the play, did not get the tackle, but made McGee bounce back for a loss of a couple. Now it's 3rd and 7. Lewis and Clark 12-yard line. Mercury Campagno and Matt Casson are the left side of the Lewis and Clark offensive line. Nathan Lean and Alex Sandoval are the right side. Snap on 3rd down. McGee rolls left. Montana rolls left, throws down the field. Incomplete. Jonathan Newsom in the vicinity near the 30-yard line on the Pacific sideline, closest to us. Incomplete pass, 4th down and 7. The Pioneers go 3 and out on the opening possession of the second half for Lewis and Clark. Huxley Richardson out to kick, averaging 40 yards per boot. Low snap. Richardson had it hop, able to get it up and kicked away. A nice one. Backpedaling Ty Hargis from the 50, squeezes through 2 defenders, works it forward on the right side hash marks, left to right ahead and to the 40-yard line. There were 2 Pioneers defenders up the field in coverage. Will Powell was one of them. And as Hargis got away from the returners. Bleemer was the one making the tackle on the play. Powell went to the official because Lewis and Clark looked to be upset. Maybe there was an alleged push in the back. Was not called, and instead Pacific has the ball at the Lewis and Clark 40-yard line. 11:07 to go third quarter. Pacific leads Lewis and Clark 35-3. Colton Smith left to right in motion as the left side wing tight end. Handoff Kenyon Harris gives to Josh Harris. Josh Harris pushes the pile forward for a gain of 2. Marvin Pusang Zita in on the tackle for Lewis and Clark, as was David Seha. So that's proof right there. Elena Goff, our spotter, pointed out right at the start of the second half that Seha was on the sideline and now is in the game. So the targeting call was dismissed against Seha. He's in the middle of the defensive line for Lewis and Clark with Ramson Paz, excuse me. Second down and 8, handoff, end around left side. Give us to Jaden Ramos, and Ramos carries near the 35-yard line. Marked down officially at the 38. Third down and 7 for Pacific. Second possession for the Boxers of the second half. Left to right in black. Ty Hargis is the split receiver to the right, now stays in the slot. And Ty Vargas now stacks up behind Hargis. Throw, caught. Hargis has it 25-yard line, en route. Works across the hash marks to the far side and is tackled at the 20. A gain of 17 for the Pacific Boxers and a first down with 9:47 to go third quarter. And Pacific leads 35-3 over the Lewis and Clark Pioneers. A sunny, clear day at Hanson Stadium. Pacific on the home field. Boxers have not been here in quite some time. Last played on the 9th of October. Beat Puget Sound 69-6. First and 10 for the Lewis and Clark 20-yard line. High snap. Kenyon Harris brings it down and gives to Kamasij. Maybe able to muster a half yard. Very little at the 20-yard line. And Meinhardt has yet another tackle. Meinhardt was the Northwest Conference Student Athlete of the Week last week, in part because of how many solo tackles that Sam Meinhardt had a week ago in the win 46-29 over Puget Sound. It was one of the top solo tackle performances in the nation this year. Under center, I formation, handoff Josh Harris off the right hip of the center. Gains a yard, tripped up by Ari Bleemer for a gain of 1. Yeah, 10 solo tackles, 14 overall. You look at the Northwest Conference, it was one of the best performances defensively in the conference last week for Meinhardt. But then you go to the NCAA single game performances this year, and there were about 13 or so that had at least 14 solo tackles this year, so still one of the best performances for Meinhardt. Snap brought down on third down, handoff right side, Josh Harris, a gain of a couple, and Bleemer's there again. So a gain of 2 for Josh Harris, and now it's 4th and 7 for the Pacific Boxers. Their kicker is Caden Almer, who has a long of 38 this year. Pacific keeps the offense on the field. 4th down and 7. They're 0 for 1 on 4th down today. 2 receivers right. Pitch play right for Harris. Getting set to pass. Throw back left side looking for Kenyon Harris. Over the shoulder. Catch made at the 7. And he's near the pylon. Reaches out for it. Far side official points at the 1 and then raises his arms for a touchdown. Josh Harris to the quarterback Kenyon Harris. And Pacific leads 41-3. Cameron Chang was within a yard or so of Kenyon Harris, read the play nicely and ran after it. But there's a penalty that was down, and with the pep band playing, didn't notice it until now. They moved the football back to the 22-yard line. I'm very curious to see why that one was called back. Cameron Chang made an excellent effort on that play. And that was a very nice pass from the running back, Josh Harris, but it's waved off. And now the line of scrimmage is the 22 of Lewis and Clark. And now Ulmer comes out for a field goal try of 39 yards out of the hold of Wyatt Wretch. Kick is up to the right side end zone and missed it. The near side official signals no good. It's out of the hold, of Colin Weirds. Weirdus was the holder. The field goal is no good. Ulmer misses his first of the year. He was 5 for 5 prior to that try. So ineligible downfield on the pass was the official call. And it doesn't signal which player was down the field. So that's why the 17-yard touchdown to Kenyon Harris was called back. The field goal is missed by Pacific. And with 7:29 left in the third, Lewis and Clark has the ball back, trailing 35-3. Right to left, Montana throwing first down catch at the helmet, 28-yard line, far side. Brought in by Devin Guest. First time that Guest has been in the game, and certainly his first catch. This junior transfer from Occidental has the ball to the 30-yard line. A quick pass play of 8 yards. Jesse Streety had the tackle. Second down passing play. Montana going deep. Newsom's all by himself and just out of his reach at the 35-yard line. Newsom had beaten his defender, could not bring in the play, and then started waving his hand up like he was looking for a flag. Perhaps contact slowed him down enough that he wasn't able to make the catch. Incomplete pass at the Pacific 35. Third down and 2 now, back at the Lewis and Clark 30-yard line. Montana has one running back to his left. Blitz throw, pass caught by Newsom. Has a first down near the 34-yard line. Tackle was made by Streety again. So the running back for Lewis and Clark on that play was Nando Magallanes. Magallanes out of Portland's Franklin High School. Typically has played defensive back. He's the freshman. Oh, that might be Carter Beggs, We'll talk about that. First down play going deep right side. And Guest can't catch up to it near the Pacific 30-yard line. Coverage down the field by Streety again. So that's, Carter Beggs. That makes way more sense because Beggs is listed as a wide receiver out of Boring, Oregon. That's near Gresham, and he played at Sam Barlow High School. One of the Bruins, 6', 185. So the Pioneers are thin at running back. And so are using McGee as the tailback, but Beggs is in right now as the running back. Motions left on second down. Montana throws back to the right. Verba Hamilton makes a quick catch and is tackled near the 36-yard line. Play was made by Koa Atkinson Sayola. Gain of 3. Third down and 7 for Lewis and Clark, right to left, trailing with 6 minutes to play in the third, 35-3. Montana gets the snap. Pressured from his right, backpedals, throws over the middle, incomplete. Closest receiver was Newsom. Pressure was by Tuatele, the returning senior from Milwaukee High School. And brings up fourth down. Pioneers bring out the punt unit. Better looking drive for Lewis and Clark that time out, but it's 4th and 8. The Lewis and Clark 36. Offensive coordinator Joe Bushman set to punt it away. Pioneers offense has not been able to move the ball. Richardson set to kick for the 7th time. Gets it at the 20. Leg into it. Nice kick. Angles it across the field diagonally. Bounces near side hash marks at the Pacific 20. And Hargis picks it up at the 10, near sideline. Able to squeeze through 2 defenders. Spin at the 23. Can't get away from Bleemer. Penalty markers out as well. Return from the 10, though, all the way up to the 25-yard line. So Hargis made a little bit of something out of nothing. Great kick by Richardson that landed at the 10-yard line. 54-yard punt by Richardson returned to the Pacific 25 with a penalty down. Boxers 6 penalties, 60 yards. Lewis and Clark just 2 for 20. Personal foul called against Pacific. So the Boxers move half the distance back to the 10-yard line. 5:38 third quarter. Pacific 35, Lewis and Clark 3. Pioneers have a 38-yard field goal, the longest of the year, by Alex Koga. Bunch formation tight left to the line. Ball on the right hash mark. 1st and 10 from the Pacific 10-yard line. Josh Harris handoff left side. Squeezes through the middle for a gain of 3. Pioneers have Paz and DJ Smith out defensively for Lewis and Clark. Tackle that time was made by Meinhardt again. Justin Hope, one of the linebackers. They have DJ Smith as one of the interior defensive linemen with Paz. Left side Nico Lang. Right side Cameron Chang. As the defensive ends, Hope on the right side of the defensive linebackers. Pitch play left on 2nd down and 8. And Kamasij able to take it forward for a gain of a couple. Pioneers also using Jordan Fajardo, the sophomore from Carson, California, as one of the linebackers. Near side cornerback is Anakin Mara's, far side McConnell LeBoy, Sammy Gonzalez, and Tanner Ono are the safeties. Today, Silas Tyson, the sophomore, had started at safety, but Gonzalez has been in the majority. Pacific on 3rd down is 4 of 9. This is a 3rd down and 4 from the 16 on Pacific's half. Left to right in black, Kenyon Harris in the pocket. Pressure got away from one, won't get away from the rest. Fajardo and Hope were in on the play. Penalty marker flew in from the far side as the pocket had collapsed. Right now it stands as a sack for Lewis and Clark of Kenyon Harris. Seth Neeson, another penalty in the second half to call. There's an illegal procedure call against Pacific. Lewis and Clark declines the penalty. And so it's 4th down for the Boxers. 35-3, Pacific leads. There's an injured player down at the 40-yard line. It's a Lewis and Clark player being attended to by a member from each Lewis and Clark and Pacific's athletic training staff. 4:16 left in the 3rd, 35-3. Great eyes by our spotter, Elena Goff, to see the injured player down at the 40-yard line, well ahead of the play. It was a passing play, and Harris was sacked by Fajardo. The illegal formation penalty was declined. So out in pass coverage, Mares is the one helped up to his feet. There are end zone seats on both sides of the field. 2 sets of bleachers to the left side, which is currently behind Pacific punter Colin Weirdes, who's standing back halfway in the end zone to kick this one away. Verba Hamilton stands at the Pacific 42-yard line. The wind is blowing in Weirdes' face. 4th down and 9 for the Pacific 11. Punt attempt for the Boxers. That one snap went through the legs of Weirdes and out the end zone. There are penalty markers on both sides. So as it stands right now, a safety on the snap, but we await 2 penalty markers, 1 on each side. .409 left in the 3rd quarter, 35-3. Lewis and Clark trails by 32 points. Another illegal formation call against the Boxers. That penalty is declined. It's a safety, and Lewis and Clark adds 2 more points to make it 35-5. And so Pacific has to kick off here shortly with 4:09 left in the third quarter. That's the second consecutive low snap on the punt that we've seen. The first was by Lewis and Clark. Richardson was able to field it pretty cleanly in the end zone. But that one on the snap went right through Weirdness's legs. 35-5 with 4:09 to go in the third quarter. One quick final from that game in Spokane. We mentioned Lewis and Clark and Whitworth during our halftime report. We're headed into a late second overtime, and that ended up being a 2-2 tie between Lewis and Clark and Whitworth. Pirates scored in the 86th minute, and then the Pioneers scored 2 minutes later to even the game at 2 apiece on Sharifles' goal. Celeste Sharifles is one of the best, if not still the leader in goals in the Northwest Conference, the Lewis and Clark sophomore. $35-5 the score. Pacific leading, 4:09 left in the third quarter. And Weirdest comes out to kick away the ball from the 20-yard line. It's a free kick by Pacific after the safety that gave Lewis and Clark 2 more points. Pioneers shift out personnel and bring in both McGee and Verba Hamilton to return the kick for Lewis and Clark. And the kick is away, and it is short. The wind got a hold of it significantly. It rolled forward, though, in front of Daffy. And Pacific has the ball. A very short kick was picked up by Lucas Voss on the hop. And Pacific recovers the free kick at the 48-yard line on Lewis and Clark's side. That kick sailed about the 45-yard line and then rolled back on the hop. The closest Pioneers player to it was Daffy. And we've seen Daffy field kicks before, but that's just an odd situation. Snap on first down, handoff through the middle. Josh Harris carries down to Lewis and Clark, 42, gain of 6. But that was an odd situation. I don't really think that that's a situation where Daffy's thinking he has to field that. It turned out to be the case. Onside kick, in essence, not an onside kick attempt, but it ends up being a recovered kickoff. Play action, Kenya Harris throws from midfield. Left side caught. Hargis on the run. Left side past the numbers. Colvin has him tackled at the 25-yard line. That's a quick 17-yard pickup. Colvin, the freshman, from Sacramento. Mars is back in the game. Ono and Colvin are the safeties. Bushman's out at a linebacker spot with Hope and Hensley. 4 down linemen for Lewis and Clark. Defense has been on the field a ton today. 1st and 10 from the Lewis and Clark 24. Kenyon Harris, play action, throws right, incomplete. Hargis broken up by Mares at the 15 on an in route. Second down and 10. Yeah, 25 minutes time of possession for Pacific. Lewis and Clark's had it 16 minutes so far. Colvin comes out. Joseph Gonzalez is in now. Pioneers bring in the senior out of San Carlos, California. He plays corner. McConnell Boy shifts to safety. 2nd and 10. Kenyon Harris with Josh Harris, the running back. Handoff Josh Harris, right side, around the right corner. Outside the numbers, cuts back in, 20-10, and he's in. Penalty marker sits at the 18, but it's a touchdown for Pacific if it's against Lewis and Clark. And Justin Hope is down as well. It's a penalty against Pacific, and another touchdown called back for the Boxers, but Hope is down at the 15-yard line. tending to Hope and Justin Hope's left calf. Alex Henley was hanging out with him. Alex Hensley, the Pioneers linebacker teammate. And stops the clock with 2:52 to go in the third quarter. Pacific 35, Lewis and Clark 5. Pioneers just scored on a missed snap on a Pacific punt attempt. Ended up being a safety. Jeremy Lowe, the head athletic trainer, out to attend to Hope. And Hope is helped up and walks off the field. So the penalty makes it 2nd down and 14 for Pacific back at the Lewis and Clark 28-yard line. Ended up being a holding call on the wide receiver Isaiah Pittry, who had a very key 3rd down conversion to keep a drive in the second quarter. Pacific scored 4 times, 4 touchdowns in the second quarter. That Pittry 3rd down conversion was key in the sense that it might have been one of those moments that breaks momentum. Pacific just had everything going for it in the second quarter. Instead, Pittry keeps the drive moving. They score again. 2nd and 14. Snap. Kenyon Harris throws right side, caught. Out route toward the sideline by Kern. Just shy of the 20-yard line. Maris takes him out. Marked at the 20, a gain of 8, 3rd and 6 now for Pacific. The Boxers are 4 of 10 on 3rd down conversions today. Left side receiver is Ty Vargas, split out to the left. Now stacks behind Hargis on the left side, open side of the field. Kenny Harris throws, caught, 1st down, 10-yard line, up the far hash marks and twisted down by Joseph Gonzalez to the Lewis and Clark 5-yard line. The reception's made by Hargis, a 15-yard gain. And Pacific's been good on 3rd down today, 5 of 11, trying to add to a 35-5 lead. Just shy of the 5-yard line, close, but not on it. 1st and goal from the 5. Left side hash marks, Kenyon Harris with Josh Harris to his left. Hands off, big hole, opens up left side and diving in. Harris is in for the touchdown. Josh Harris, 3rd rushing touchdown of the day for Pacific. It's a 41-5 Boxers lead. Minute 53 left in the 3rd quarter. Almer on for the PAT for Pacific. It's good. Minute 53 left, 3rd quarter. Pacific 42, Lewis and Clark 5 on Pios Street.
I think everyone should take Intro to Chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed Education in a Complex World. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was International Affairs, just Intro to International Affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
(42-5) Pacific leads Lewis and Clark. Minute 53 left in the 3rd. Zach Saros kicks off for Pacific left to right. The Pioneers fielded one of their best fieldings of the day, but then tripped up. Desmond Holton had it cleanly, but had to run in from the far side. And as he tried to move upfield, stumbled down, and the ball is marked down at the 20-yard line. Actually shorter than that, the 16 for Holton. Holton's going to be a great asset to the Pioneers. Already has been, but in his freshman season out of Queen Creek, Arizona. A kickoff return for a touchdown this year, played at Castile High School. Here's a first down snap, give to Baggs, and Baggs works to the left side of the field. Nice carry, Baggs 25, and is tackled at the 30-yard line. The give to the freshman Carter Baggs in the backfield has a 15-yard gain. Even more, ends up being a 14-yard gain for Lewis and Clark. And another injured Pioneers player. This time it's Campagno, the left tackle. Minute 34 left in the third, 42-5. It was a 15-yard gain initially, I thought. And I said, wait, even more. But it ends up being just a 14-yard gain, so I was wrong. Campagno sits down. He was on a knee and now sits down to be attended to by the training staff. It's one of the most beautiful days we've had for football this year. 2 of the 3 Lewis and Clark home games have been rain-soaked. They'll play next Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific time, taking on George Fox. George Fox having a very good year, and right now trailing in the battle of the top 2 teams in the Northwest Conference right now, 28-0 to Linfield. Whitworth has been exceptional this year too. Lewis and Clark has already played the Pirates. And right now Whitworth leading in the third quarter 55-14 over Puget Sound. Right to left, Lewis and Clark trailing 42-5. First and 10 from its own 30. Snap, play action, Montana throws, seam route caught, 45-yard line. Noah Hobbs has the reception and is twisted down after gaining to the 47-yard line. Tackle was made for Pacific by Alika Serrano. Serrano, throw to the right side, another catch made. This is Verba Hamilton, Pacific territory at the 46, spun forward and maybe close to another first down. Pioneers gain 10 more yards, moving the ball late third quarter, trailing 42-5 to Pacific Boxers. Baggs is the running back. First and 10. Throw left side. Catch made. Jonathan Newsom on the numbers near side. Squeezes through 2 defenders and works it down to the 37-yard line. Tackle was made by Dalton Payfer-Lockling. Gain of 6, second down and 4. Nice snap, got movement from the right side of the Boxers' defensive front. Line of scrimmage, the Pacific 36. Montana clapped the hands together. Was able to get motion from the Boxers' defensive line. With Campagno coming out, Donovan Lefebvre came in for a couple of snaps. Campagno comes back in. False start against the Pioneers. Donovan Lefebvre, first year out of Clovis, California, 6'1", 310. So Campagno is back in at the left tackle position. Second, 8 from the 41-yard line of Pacific. Montana gets the snap. Play action, pumps, gets away from pressure down low, right side, spins back to the middle, and returns to the line of scrimmage. Preston Williams had the tackle. Iosefa also in on the play, and that's the end of the third quarter. We've reached the end of 3 from Hansen Stadium on the campus of Pacific University in Forest Grove, Oregon. Pacific Boxers 42, Lewis and Clark Pioneers 5 on Pios Street.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did winter last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds, me being an econ major and my two group mates being chemistry majors. We really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, well, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.
Out of the timeout to open up the fourth quarter, Montana's throwing for Lewis, and the pass is intercepted on the far side. It was a deep ball left side as we return back. Start of the fourth quarter, Pacific 42, Lewis and Clark 5. Pass is intercepted at the 20-yard line. Take a look at the numbers through three quarters here in just a moment. 42-5, the interception thrown by Montana. His fourth interception of the year came into today, 12 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. That ends one of the most promising drives for Lewis and Clark so far today. And under center, Pacific goes back to work. Looks like a bad snap to Kenyon Harris, who falls on top of it. Down to the 19-yard line. Elena Goff with some of the stats. Let's take a look at the first downs for each team.
Lewis and Clark 9 first downs, and Pacific 17 first downs.
Next line is rushing yards.
21-47 Lewis and Clark, and 40-224 Pacific.
That's 40 carries, 224 yards rushing for Pacific. Here's a snap on second down and 11 after Kenyon Harris had the fall on it. Throws to the near side and deflected away. The intended receiver for Pacific was Noah Carvalho. Well, let's take a look at total passing yards.
133 Lewis and Clark, and 160 Pacific.
So that makes total plays for how many yards for each team?
41-180 Lewis and Clark, and 61-384 Pacific.
So that's 61 plays, 384 yards for Pacific. Third down and 11. Snap to Harris with 2 running backs from the 19. Lots of time. Rolls to the right, still time. Throws down the far sideline and intended for Hargis at the 35-yard line. And the pass is incomplete. Might have been Nando Magianis in on the play. If that was the case, nice play by Magianis. I think it went with Sammy Gonzalez wearing 29. I bet that's what it was, 29. All right, here we go. Punt formation for Pacific. Kick is away by Weirdas. Bounces, one hop in front of Verba. Hamilton has it at the 43 of Pacific. Works between the hash marks through the middle of the field and is ridden down at the 42. Tackle was made for Pacific by, looks like Race Manrique out of Honolulu. First and 10, Lewis and Clark going left to right. Pioneers make a change at quarterback. Bring in Tyron Sivangsa. First game in a while for Sivangsa. It's been really Cruz Montana playing well, but now down 42-5. Sivangsa gets a shot, throws right side to Baggs. And Baggs is twisted down shy of the line of scrimmage. The screen play is snuffed out for a loss back to the 46-yard line. It was Samuel Cortez on the tackle. Second down and 14. Savonxa gets the snap, play action to Beggs, throws over the middle and incomplete, broken up. Intended for Cordova. Had good coverage from Aaron Krapinski, Petaluma, California junior. Savonxa transferred to Lewis and Clark from College of the Siskiyous. 15 to 22 passing this year for 163 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. 3rd and 14 at the Pacific 46. Savonxa rolls to the right, keeps his eyes downfield, throws, and incomplete, intended for Devin Guest. And a penalty marker comes out late. Diving tip of the ball was made by the defensive back, Zion Booker. There's penalty marker after the play. The ball tipped up in the air. As I mentioned, it was intended, but then had a chance to be caught by Beggs, the running back, running up that same side of the field with Guest, the intended receiver. Or excuse me, Cordova. Unnecessary roughness is the penalty against Pacific. With 13:10 to go in the 3rd quarter. Lewis and Clark trailing 42-5, but the Pioneers on the 9th penalty against Pacific move to the 30-yard line. I second guess myself. It was not Cordova, it was Guest, the intended receiver. 1st and 10, Lewis and Clark. Savonxa, the transfer quarterback in the game, has Guest and Ben Burnham to the right side of the formation. Newsom and Cordova to the left side. Handoff Beggs, works to the right side outside the numbers, past the 30, and stacked up. The ball came free in front of the Pacific sideline, around the 27-yard line. And it looks like Burnham was the one able to recover it. Booker made the tackle. Lewis and Clark maintains possession, a gain of 2, down to the 28-yard line. Now Tony Rangel is the running back on 2nd and 8. Same receiver alignment, ball on the right side hash, 3 down lineman for Pacific. Savonxa flushed to the right, throws deep, looking for the end zone, has Burnham, makes the grab, and he's in. Touchdown, Lewis and Clark. Great coverage by Cortez, the safety, but Burnham able to get the ball, and Lewis and Clark has his first touchdown of the game. Right inside the near pylon on the front of the end zone, Burnham catches the touchdown, and Lewis and Clark makes it 42-11. On the 28-yard reception from Savonxa. Burnham's first career collegiate touchdown catch, the sophomore out of Burbank, California. Alex Koga on for the PAT. It's 42-12. Lewis and Clark closes the gap. 12:38 to play in quarter number 4. Pioneers trail 42-12 on Pios Street.
I think everyone should take intro to chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed education in a complex world. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was international affairs, just intro to international affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
12:38 to play in the 4th quarter, 42-12. Lewis and Clark trailing Pacific by 30 points with the first touchdown pass of the career of Ben Burnham. It's the first touchdown of the day for Lewis and Clark. Pioneers have a 38-yard field goal by Koga and a safety as well. Kickoff bounces at the 10, brought up to the 20. Angling toward the near side hash mark, right to left return. That's Vargas. Daffy was in the area on the tackle. 1st and 10 for Pacific from the Boxers' 27-yard line. Both teams are 3-3 this year, 2-2 in Northwest Conference play. Pacific entering today's game on 2 straight losses. Last week a 21-14 defeat to George Fox after a 52-23 loss at Linfield. Right to left, black tops. Quarterback is now Ronald Robertson. And Robertson throws on 1st down, completes a pass. Jaden Ramos has it to the 40-yard line. Sammy Gonzalez with a tackle, a 1st down pass on the first throw by Robertson. Alameda, California sophomore, 6 foot, 215 pounds. But another penalty against Pacific. This time it's another ineligible player downfield. So instead of a 1st down to the 40, it's a 1st and 15 back to the 22-yard line. Robertson, 3 games played, has only thrown 1 pass. It was complete. That one that he just completed will not count because of the penalty. Kenyon Harris has had an outstanding year at quarterback for the Pacific Boxers. Leaves the game today after 13 of 23, 160 yards and a touchdown. 1st and 15, Robertson gets the snap, pressured from his backside, and he's brought down. That's Fajardo with the sack, his 2nd of the game. Blitzing linebacker for the Pioneers drops the quarterback Robertson for a loss of 7 to the 15. Two receivers right, 1 to the left. 2nd down and 22, quarterback draw play. Robertson runs through the middle, past the 20, and spun down near the 25-yard line. Saw the tackle, that's Jeremiah Bernal, the freshman defensive lineman from Stockton, California, the game. Pioneers' left side defensive end is Rusty Nozo. Lang stays in as the right side of the 3-man front. Fajardo, Logan Herman, Daniel Pham. 3 of the 4 linebackers for Lewis and Clark. Connor Hilberg is in as well. 3rd down and 12. Pass deflected in the face of Robertson was Pham and knocked it down right in front of the quarterback on the pass attempt to the right side. Incomplete. It's 4th down. 10:56 to play, 4th quarter, 42-12. Pioneers set to get the ball back. Hilberg in his freshman year out of Washington, 5'10", 200 pounds. Pham, sophomore out of Portland Central Catholic High School, 6 foot 175, makes the play. It's intended for Lucas Voss. Kick is away, bounces at midfield, rolls toward Verba Hamilton, who backs away from it and continues to roll right to left. That's the direction that the wind is blowing, and it takes it all the way to the 19-yard line. 56-yard punt for Pacific. Lewis and Clark has the ball, 10:40 to play, 4th quarter. And this is how we got to this point. Pacific built a lead 35-3 at halftime. Opening kickoff, Lewis and Clark set to receive. Desmond Holton had the ball stripped away from him on the return. And Pacific had the ball 1st and 10 from the Lewis and Clark 30. Ty Hargis on the receiving end of a 30-yard pass from Kenyon Harris to make it a 7-0 lead. And then later in the second half, Pioneers fumbled an attempt to return a punt, and that set up Pacific on the doorstep yet again. Sivangsa carries left side. The quarterback keeper is shy of the line of scrimmage. That's a loss. Great defensive play made by Mitchell Ulrich. No, I don't think that was Ulrich. I think he's not playing today. Here's a 2nd down and 11. Sivanksa flush to his right. Throws across his body, caught by Guest, 25-yard line in the middle of the field. Spins out at the 35 and all the way up to the 40-yard line. Nice run after the catch by Guest. That's a gain of 22 to the 40-yard line for Lewis and Clark. Sivanksa comes out. Trey Morris is in, Pioneers quarterback out of Seattle's Rainier Beach High School. Playing in back-to-back games. He took a couple of snaps in the first quarter last week against Puget Sound. Morris keeper to the right side. Kyolana Khan makes the tackle. Gain of 1. 9:25 to go, 4th quarter. 42-12. Lewis and Clark trying to score on back-to-back possessions. 2nd down and 9 from the Lewis and Clark 41-yard line. Blitz from the left side of the quarterback. Morris throws right. Leaping catch made at the 46-yard line. Brought in by Guest. Nico Iosufa makes the tackle. Gain to the 46-yard line. Pick up about 5, sets up a 3rd and 4 for Lewis and Clark. Guest on the receiving end has Burnham inside of him, split to the right. And whistles blow before the snap. Timeout taken by Lewis and Clark, the first spent by the Pioneers. Quick step away, 8:36 to go, 4th quarter. Lewis and Clark 42-12, trailing Pacific on Pios Street.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
.36 remaining, 4th quarter. Thanks for being with us on Pios Stream. 42-12 lead for Pacific. Pioneers facing a 3rd down and 4. Their own 46. Took a timeout. Trey Morris throwing, and he's brought down right before the sack. He released the ball. Incomplete pass over the middle. The pressure by Loden Reese. And it's incomplete, 4th down. Pioneers bring on the punt unit. Trailing 42-12 with 8:32 to go in the 4th. Huxley Richardson's had a busy day wearing the yellow shoes back at the 30-yard line. 7 punts, 42 yards per kick. Richardson kicks it to the right side, rolls at the 30, and it goes out of bounds near the 20-yard line. That was a tough kick into the wind, and it kind of trailed one of the coverage team members for Lewis and Clark. Came closest to maybe touching the wide receiver for Pacific, Carvalho, but it was far enough away, went out of bounds. Pacific has the ball back, 1st and 10, leading 42-12. 8:25 to go in the 4th quarter, starting from the 20-yard line. Under center I formation, Robertson's the quarterback. Handoff goes to the right side. Kamasij, who has a touchdown in this game, gains about 10 yards and then pushes the pile forward for an extra yard or so. And a 1st down carry by Kamasij to the 30-yard line, but another penalty. But so many penalties on Pacific after big plays of like at least 8 yards, if not double digits. 11 penalties, 105 plus yards for a team in Pacific that came into today second in the conference in fewest penalty yards per game. Back Pacific back to the 10-yard line, 1st and 20 from the 9-yard line. High snap brought down, handoff. Siege maybe picks up 1. Tackled by Pham. 11 penalties, 115 yards today for Pacific. Let's acknowledge the great work by the Lewis and Clark cross-country teams today. 3rd place finishes the conference championships, but head coach Matthew Barreau has talked about really an impressive change. We'll talk more about that. 2nd and long. Robertson passing, good pocket, airs it out deep near side and out of the reach of the intended receiver, Carvalho, at the 40-yard line. Good coverage down the field, Sammy Gonzalez and Joseph Gonzalez. They matched their finish from a couple of years ago. That was the last conference championship. There was no cross-country championship in 2020. But Barreau noting that they lowered their scores on both sides. Women went from 108 points to 74. Men from 96 to 86. So pretty significant point reductions in the team score for the Northwest Conference Championships at Lewis and Clark Cross Country. 3rd down and 18. Robertson in shotgun. And before the snap, Pacific uses a timeout. That's the first taken by the Boxers. 7:31 to go in the 4th quarter. There were 3 Northwest Conference first team selections for Lewis and Clark. So pretty impressive, as you had George Karamitos getting a 3rd place finish for the men. And then Frankie Reed ended up in the top 7 as well for the men. And then Riley Beasy, I believe, was 3rd for the women's team. It was certainly up there and earned first team All Northwest Conference honors as well. Beasy's been one of the best runners for the Pioneers this year. I think he's finished as the top Lewis and Clark finisher in every race in which that Beasy's been in, and finished 4th today at the Northwest Conference Championships. Impressive finish for Beasy. I believe 2 more women's student athletes too are at least All Northwest Conference 2nd team. We'll let you know at lcpioneers.com. Snap to Robertson on 3rd and long after the timeout. Steps up, decides to run through the middle, weaves left, 15-yard line, caught from behind near the 20. On the numbers, the stop is made by Lewis and Clark's Connor Hilberg. Good gain by Robertson, not enough for a first down. Brings up 4th and 9. 7:07 and a counting down clock. 42-12 in the 4th quarter. Lewis and Clark trails by 30. Verba Hamilton back to return the kick at the 45-yard line for Lewis and Clark. 47 yards per kick for Weirdes. Bounces at the 50 on the hop. Verba Hamilton from the 40. Near side, out by the sideline, pushed out at midfield and took out a couple of people on the sideline with that hard shove. Verba Hamilton was nearly out of bounds when he got shoved, and he was taking out players maybe 4 yards into the sideline. No penalties. Return to the Pacific 47-yard line for Verba Hamilton. Knocked over one person on a scooter. Quarterback for Lewis and Clark, Sivanksa, who came out in favor of Trey Morris on the last series. Sivanksa is the QB2 on the depth chart for Lewis and Clark. 3rd series of the game for Sivanksa. 1st and 10 from the Pacific 47. Drops back, throws right side, and caught 25-yard line to the near side of the field. Guest has yet another reception, and Booker makes the tackle. Good game for Devin Guest. I believe that's his 4th reception of the game. He might have the most receptions. In fact, he does for over 50 yards receiving. 1st and 10 from the Pacific 25-yard line. High snap, end around. Keegan Hawley, left side on the hash marks, is stacked up for a gain of 1. Hawley's in his senior year out of Sweet Home, Oregon, 5'10", 160. Under 6 to play, 4th quarter. Pacific 42, Lewis and Clark 12. Two receivers right, Guest. On the outside of Hawley. Ball on the left side hash marks. Ivanka, 2nd and 9. Pressured in his face, throws to the right side, trying to get it out to Guest, cannot do so. Ivanka helped up by Rangel. The pressure was applied by Pacific's linebacker. Kamanaho Gilliant. 3rd down and 9. Lewis and Clark from the Pacific 24. Snap to Sivanksa, throws left, deep route to the far pylon, caught, touchdown. Lewis and Clark. Holton has the reception. And the Pioneers score their 2nd touchdown of the quarter and trail 42-18. First career touchdown reception for Holton. And just his 3rd reception of the year. He has a kickoff return TD this year. High fives across the way. Sivanksa with his 2nd touchdown pass of the game. His 3rd touchdown pass of the year. Koga on for the PAT. That's good. 5:31 left in the 4th quarter. Lewis and Clark closing the gap, trailing 42-19 on Pios Street.
I think everyone should take Intro to Chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed Education in a Complex World. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was International Affairs, just Intro to International Affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
Welcome back to Hansen Stadium. Pacific University of Forest Grove, Oregon. 42-19 Lewis and Clark trails Pacific in Northwest Conference football. Kickoff is hopped in front of the returner for Pacific, Vargas. Can't get a clean handle on it, bats it up in the air. It goes out of bounds on the near sideline. Lewis and Clark will go back to the defensive side of the football with 5:29 left in the 4th quarter, trailing 42-19. Ian Falconer is in the 2nd year as the head coach for Pacific. First season coaching the team as head coach. As I mentioned, there was no 2020 Northwest Conference football season, so Falconer was named the head coach during the coronavirus pandemic. Robertson, the quarterback, handoff. Kamasij goes to the right side, breaks tackles, cuts it back to the left, still on his feet, 35-40 into the 45-yard line. Finally stopped by Hilberg, who's had a good late game today. A pickup of 22 yards for Pacific, 1st down. Falconer, former coach at Lewis and Clark, was part of the assistant staff from 06 to 09. In his 2nd stint, coached offensive line and was the offensive coordinator for the Pioneers. Their head coach, Chris Szalages, back in 03, was the tight ends coach for the Pioneers. Handoff on 1st and 10 from the Pacific 45-yard line, and the Boxers just carry Lewis and Clark players. That's Voss with the carry. Pioneers have Pusung Zita on the front line. Bernal is in the middle of the defensive line. Left side is Nozo. Sammy Gonzalez and Colvin are the safeties for Lewis and Clark. Far side Magallanes in as the corner. Gain of 4 on first down, sets up 2nd and 6. Just shy of midfield, right to left in black. Pacific with a 42-19 lead. 4:16 to play. Handoff. Kamasij sidesteps the offensive line at midfield, runs to the right, gets to the 46, shy of the first down by 1 yard. There's an injured player for Lewis and Clark. Colvin is down at the 49. So you have the link to Lewis and Clark for Falconer, the head coach of the Boxers. And then Jim Kraft also was a former Lewis and Clark head coach. Returned to call plays for Pacific after 2 years at Cal Poly. And Kraft returned because Pacific resurrected football. They had gotten rid of the program, brought it back in 2010. And Kraft was a member of that first staff as well. Colvin's off. Ono comes back on for Lewis and Clark at safety. 3rd and 1 from the Pioneers' 46-yard line. Pacific in no hurry, letting time tick down late in this game. William Bookland is the near side bunched receiver for the Boxers. Handoff through the middle, bouncing it left, and twisted down is Voss. First down carry to the 42-yard line. Joseph Gonzalez on the tackle with 3.5 to play in the 4th. Jay Losey's in the 7th season as the head coach for Lewis and Clark. So far, this 2019 season seems to be replicated in the 2021 season. Very similar outcomes in a lot of ways, although Lewis and Clark did lose to Pacific Lutheran, a team it beat back in 2019. 1st and 10 from the Lewis and Clark 42. High snap Robertson, handoff Voss. Great seal block, opens up the left side, 40-yard line, and a penalty is thrown as the tackle was made by Sammy Gonzalez near the 32. Really high quality block by the tight end fullback Colton Smith. It really opened things up for Voss on the left side. It's a personal foul penalty against Lewis and Clark. Moves Pacific from around the 32 inside the 20 with 2:55 to go in the 4th quarter. Lewis and Clark trailing 42-19. So the Pioneers lost 38-37 to Pacific Lutheran back on the 9th of October. Otherwise, the Pioneers had won that game. They would have been in the middle of a 3-game winning streak and had already matched their win total from 2019, which was Lewis and Clark's most successful season since the early part of the 2010s. 1st and 10 from the Lewis and Clark 18 for Pacific. Robertson under center, bunch receivers tight to the line, left side. Kamasij gets the handoff, hurdles at the 15, grabbed onto by Sammy Gonzalez and taken down at the 12, and there's a push at the end of that play. Look, it might have been Darian Maddox, the offensive lineman, after Gonzalez grabbed onto the ball carrier. Stops the clock with 2:34 left in the 4th. 42-19, Lewis and Clark trailing Pacific. After the run, the spot is the 12. That's a personal foul against Pacific. Backs the Boxers up to around the 27-yard line. So Lewis and Clark, if they can get a win next week against George Fox, would really make a highlight to the final 2 games of 2021. Lewis and Clark, as I mentioned, 4 wins in 2019, was their first 4-win season since 2011. They've already accomplished some milestones this year, including a 4th straight defense of the Wagon Wheel Traveling Trophy with a 4th straight win over Willamette. That hadn't happened since 1989 to 1992. Handoff left side. Lots of space. Voss crashes into the Pioneers defense at the 20 and pushes the pile all the way to the 20. Gain of 7. Brings up 3rd down and 12. No, these teams had the exact same records coming into today. The one thing that was interesting and worth noting is the record of the non-conference opponents that Pacific had played. A 35-23 loss home against Chapman. A 38-35 win at Pomona-Pitzer. Their combined record now 8-5 coming into today. Pioneers lost at Claremont Mudscripts 34-10, won 66-14 over Whittier in their non-conference games. Handoff left side, Voss explodes to the 15. It gets to the 13-yard line. That's shy of a first down by about 3 or 4 yards. Herman made the tackle. Pioneers, those two teams, a combined 5-9. So I think that was one thing that I noticed coming into this matchup is same records, but Pacific has had a little bit more of a tougher schedule coming into this game. And that's why I'm so interested to see what the George Fox game looks like next week in Portland, because Lewis and Clark will take on a team that Pacific lost to 21-14. Tempo is always so important too. This game started off oddly as the fumble on the opening kickoff for Lewis and Clark set a really bad tone. 39 seconds left in the 4th. Timeout taken Pacific with a 42-19 lead. As a Denver Broncos fan, I can attest to odd starts to games. If you remember back to the Lewis and Clark, I said Lewis and Clark, the Denver Broncos appearance in Super Bowl 48 against Seattle, the opening snap flies past Peyton Manning's head. And that whole thing was just kind of derailed from the get-go for the Broncos. And that kind of felt like the way things were going today. And the key play, in my opinion, was when Isaiah Pittry had a conversion on the 9-yard touchdown drive by Kenyon Harris. If you look back at the scoring summary, that was the 3rd touchdown of the 2nd quarter, in which the Boxers scored 4 times. And Pittry had the 3rd down conversion. I think it was like a 3rd and 8. And if Pioneers hold there, they're trailing just 21-3 and have the football back. 4th down snap run is short of the first down. Pioneers will get the ball back with 34 seconds left, trailing 42-19. And so I think that was such a key spot because Pacific's been so good today on 3rd down. At this point, they're 6 of 16, but at one point we're like 6 of 12. That if the Pioneers have been able to force a punt there, trail 21-3 with roughly 4 or 5 minutes, well, probably 5 or 6 minutes left in the 2nd quarter. I think that might have changed the trajectory of the game. Instead, Boxers finish out a 12-play, 65-yard drive, go up 28-3, and then after the muffed punt by Aiden Verba Hamilton, they score on a 2-yard rushing touchdown with minute 31 remaining in the 2nd quarter. I had actually said earlier this half that I thought that happened in 3rd, but it was in the 2nd quarter. So 2 big miscues in the opening half for Lewis and Clark on special teams. First down pass is completed by Cade Knighton, who's in the game. Knighton's out of Portland's Central Catholic High School, transferred from Occidental, and threw a 22-yard completion to Burnham on the left side. So it's 1st and 10 now, Lewis and Clark from the 33 with 23 seconds left. Lewis and Clark at their own 33. Looks like a clock adjustment to 27 seconds. Burnham had gotten out of bounds. Knighton, lefty thrower to the far side, out to Burnham again, caught at the 38. Gain of 5, stops the clock with 24 seconds left. Lewis and Clark does have a pair of timeouts remaining, trailing 42-19. Snap to Knighton. No, it's not Knighton. Throws right side. Oh, no, that was Knighton. So the last pass before that was thrown by J.T. Willis, I'm pretty sure. As they're rotating personnel, that was Knighton who threw this last one. Incomplete, brings up 3rd down. Now JT Willis comes back into the game. "19 seconds left. All right, this is Willis in at quarterback. Lefty throws over the middle, intended for Hawley at midfield, incomplete. And a late penalty marker comes in. The coverage was supplied by the linebacker, Pay for Lockling, and Hawley was looking for a penalty marker the whole way. And a penalty marker came out late. Defensive holding call against Lewis and Clark, and it's a first down for the Pioneers with 14 seconds left. 10-yard penalty, excuse me, to the 48-yard line. Pioneers are looking for the ball. They went as if it was a pass interference call. So they're standing at the Pacific 48-yard line. The ball is placed at the Lewis and Clark 48. Michael Lloyd, the center's standing over the ball with his arms stretched out to either side going, where's the football? 1st and 10 snap. Knighton again is back in, flushed and brought down. There's a sack for Pacific. Whistles blow, timeout taken by Lewis and Clark as Braden Laughlin makes the sack. That was also part of the story of how this game got a little out of hand for Lewis and Clark, as Pacific built a 35-3 lead. The Boxers had 5 sacks prior to that snap, now have 6, and 4 of those came in the first half. Lewis and Clark uses a timeout, 8 seconds remaining in the 4th quarter, trailing 42-19. Cruz Montana goes 11 of 21 for 133 yards and an interception. And then you had a nice effort by Tyron Sivongsa, 5 of 8 passing, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. Found Ben Burnham for 1, Desmond Holton for the other. Running game just never really got going today. Elijah McGee, who was the primary tailback for Lewis and Clark a week ago against Puget Sound, averaging 6.8 yards per carry coming into today. Just 2.4 yards per carry against Pacific. Snap. Knighton gets the call, throws deep over the middle, and at the feet of Burnham, incomplete near the Pacific 32-yard line. And brings up 3rd down, coverage downfield by Iosuffa. 5 seconds left in the 4th quarter. Pacific will play at Whitworth next weekend and then host Willamette in the finale on the 13th. Boxers can beat Whitworth. They have to play very well. Pioneers had a very good game against Whitworth earlier. Willis on a crossing route, caught on the run. Holton left to right across the field to the near sideline, 40-yard line, and is brought down at the 36. 20-yard gain by Holton on the final play of the game. For the final score from Hanson Stadium today, Pioneers fall 42-19. We are excited to see you in Portland next weekend, the home finale for Lewis and Clark football. It has been so great to get to play football again after losing the 2020 season to the pandemic. All the precautions, all the work that everyone's put into place to get a chance to play football this year. And it's been an enjoyable experience, but today, not the best game. It's just great to be out playing football. We'll see you again next week as Lewis and Clark host George Fox for Senior Day. The final score from Hanson Stadium, Pacific University in Forest Grove, Oregon. Pacific Boxers 42, Lewis and Clark Pioneers 19. Lewis and Clark falls to 3-4 on the year and 2-3 in Northwest Conference play. Pacific bumps up to 4-3 overall and 3-2 in Northwest Conference games. At Whitworth next weekend, Lewis and Clark is home to George Fox at the end of the home schedule next weekend. For Elena Goff, who did a tremendous job spotting and giving us the scoreboard update today, I am Ryan Goff. Big thanks to all the Pacific University Athletic Communications staff. Jeff and his team did a tremendous job today giving us a vantage point for this game. We hope you had fun. joining us on this broadcast of Lewis and Clark football on Pioss Stream. We'll see you again next week. Thank you for having fun with us. So it's been a lot of fun. More next weekend on Pioss Stream. Till then, goodbye, everybody.